Welcome back once again to the extra special episode of the CHGO Sky Podcast. It's draft night. It's WNBA Draft night. And as always, CHGO Sky is presented by CD, One Price Cleaners. Visit chgo.cd1, that's chgo.cdone.com. Once there, you can pick from an in-store coupon or online pickup and delivery coupon options because, as Stephen Garner and I always say, if you go out, you got to go out looking fresh, and you got to go outside looking pressed. It's me, it's CJP, Chris Pennant here in the studio with the man on the wheels of steel, Lawrence Benedetto.
Yo, what is happening? How's it going?
Man, traffic outside is tense, and I think it's like because summertime. It's WNBA draft time. Yeah, well, also that, yeah. Everybody's like, oh, it's going to be 50 degrees in like 3 days, and it's going to be rainy, so they got to get out. The 606 was absolutely full to bursting. But you see us, we're here in studio, man.
Look at that.
Look at us. Look at Lawrence outfitted.
I got my championship gear.
2021 World Championship.
Shout out.
That's official. That's official. I got the hometown merch. If you have not gotten this shirt,
get the merch.
Get the merch, man. We're going to talk about CHGO Locker all night, every night, but go on to allchgo.com and get your merchandise.
Yeah. I actually linked to it in tonight's YouTube stream, so you'll see it underneath the description there. So you'll see links to all the shirts.
I sincerely hope you're not. If you're not following us on Twitter, follow us on Twitter. That's at CHGO_SKY, CHGO_Sky. I am at Quandary Kitten. That's with a K, KWANDARY. And our man on the ground, you will see him later tonight, Stephen Garner, is live at Sky Draft HQ up north on Kedzie Avenue. Follow Steven at Stay True S.3. That's Stay True S.3 all season long. He will have your in-depth Sky analysis as well as what our picks tonight will be able to do on the floor for them. And Lawrence, that's the big question. We got a cavalcade of guests coming on tonight, but let's shout out our viewers all the way from France. Our man Dana Season on Twitter, CHGO Sky FR. It's draft night. Let's go. Ready to watch this Pagliocca Aster class, as I already call it. I like that. And this is good. I even bought Reese's and just in case we draft Angel. I don't know if he's from France because he said Reese's. That's Chicago as it gets.
Yeah, I agree. I love Reese's peanut butter cups. Let's go.
Here's a question for you before we get into the meat and potatoes of all this. Reese's Pieces, regular Reese's cups, the minis, or the ones with the like graham cracker inside?
For me, what about like the different, like the eggs or the Halloween pumpkin shapes?
Those are cool, but I'm very rigid about things, so I don't eat holiday candy when it's not a holiday. So I'm talking about the everyday snacks.
I'm gonna go in order. I will go with the full-size peanut butter cup first.
Okay.
Then Reese's Pieces. I love the old school. Maybe it's because I grew up from E.T. land and I'm old, but I love Reese's Pieces. And then the mini cups will be next because, honestly, that's just more unwrapping to do, it's harder to do that.
Yeah, that's the thing about the minis. They're always, really, the foil's really tight, which you got to have it because...
And you got to have, 7 of them to, actually satisfy.
That's true, too.
So it's too much unwrapping for me.
If you're not tuned into us, which, obviously you are if you're watching this, but we hope you got your TVs tuned to ESPN.
Yeah, we do.
We know who's going to be the first pick.
Who is it?
It's going to be Caitlin Clark.
No, really?
Caitlin Clark.
She's not falling to 3?
Caitlin Abigail. Her middle name's not Abigail. I just threw that in there.
It could be.
It makes sense. But Caitlin Clark is going first. She's on right now at draft headquarters in Brooklyn, and it's actually, I gotta say, it's kind of cool to be the first pick and then not only get to be on stage and walk out there, but talking live, the way she's talking to the ESPN crew, it's like she's played her first 10 games already.
Yeah.
She looks comfortable.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about her. She knows that she's always that's what that big long article about how she's basically she lives in the moment. She doesn't care if it's a big moment. She doesn't feel nervous. She's fine. So when she goes on SNL on Saturday and just buries Michael Che.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for doing that, by the way.
That was crazy.
She was great. Got hit every line. It's just it's like a logo 3 for her. Nothing. Layup.
But getting into the draft itself, the Sky have the number 3 pick and the number 7 pick. The number 7 pick, I know they made a trade a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
To get that number 7 pick, got it from Minnesota in exchange for Nikolina Milic, and the Sky's traded super prodigy Sika Kone, and I cannot overstate that. This is a big move, not just because, as John Hosey in our comment section said, I hope Angel falls to 7th. Clark Lorenzen, shout out to Clark. Good to see you in the chat, man.
I love Clark.
Hope that Angel falls to 7th. Giving up a player like Sika Kone is a risk, and I don't want to overstate how much of a risk that is. She was named the best newcomer in EuroLeague, and that's not just a domestic league, that's the European competition. Yeah. And if you were able to see that final between Besiktas, Dana Evans' team, but against the London Lions, you've seen how intense that competition has been all season long. And for Sika, for what we saw last year, she scored 20 points in her first game, was a very raw product, but was always able to make an impact. And she's a player that when James Wade picked her up, remember this was a James Wade pickup.
Yeah.
Her coaches said she is a player who could be one of the best of all time. And she's, if she was living in this country, she wouldn't be able to drive yet, I think. I don't think she would be able to get her regular driver's license yet. I'm pretty sure she's still 20. So for all of the players who have gone through women's basketball in history, especially through Europe, the players that we've seen come through Europe, Emma Miesemann, if you're talking about overseas as well, Lauren Jackson, Liz Cambage, Maria Vadieva, Elena Yagopova, who is a player that everybody still wants to see in the W. That's ridiculous to have that kind of praise, and you've just finished before you even played a season in the top professional league.
Yeah, it's wild.
So for trading Sika, and French Bulls, I saw you at that game. I saw that post. I'll see if we can toss that one up because that was a cool photo you got to take on court with Dana.
Oh, is that on his
Twitter?
Twitter?
No, that's on Twitter. That's on Twitter. That was a dope photo.
Throw that in the if you can find that, throw it in the Sky Slack, and I'll drop it on here.
I got you because I wanna shout that one out. I remember seeing that over the weekend, and I was like, that's nice. Dana et un crème. That's the best. I'm not good at French. I'll admit
I took 6 years of French.
Are you good at it though?
Mais no.
That was better than me.
I mean, I could say baguette, but I don't think that's really doing anything for anyone.
I don't know if we could do that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's trading Sika, and John, I saw you say you were shocked she got traded too. That's what you do when you have your eye on somebody and you absolutely, you have to have them. And I think that was the surprise because, Lawrence, I threw that one in the Slack for you. I got you.
All right. Oh, there it is.
Because you're only trading up one spot. It's a deep draft, but it's a deep draft for bigs.
Right.
And you have Elizabeth Williams, Izzy Harrison coming back from injury, and presumably one of Rickea Jackson or Kamilla Cardoso with your first pick.
Yeah.
So with your second pick, you are banking on Angel Reese, presumably, at number 7, because after Georgia A. Moore decided to go back to school, Angel moved up in the draft.
Right.
So this has to work. That's the big thing. This has to work. I cannot overstate that. This has to work. The Sky are in a tenuous position, and they've been in a tenuous position for 2 years now, but you're not just talking about getting back into playoff contention. 2021 is moving further away every day. You have to keep maintaining and building social capital, which in the WNBA is even more important. I think it's more important than almost anything else, including the product on the floor. You have to be able to get the city behind you, get fans behind you, keep them interested, keep them wanting more. And so the Sky were in a good position after 2021 that first year, but then when the bottom fell out in that last game against Connecticut, they've been trying to rebuild. So you have to hit. You have to make sure you hit with all these picks tonight. Even kind of that first pick in the second round is really important too.
Yeah. I mean, well, and that's the thing about with the trade they made with Minnesota. I think doesn't that open up an extra roster spot where that number 13 pick could technically end up being.
The thought is that Milic is not going to stay with the roster.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
So that's true, and I like that too because I think there's a lot of potential at that pick because we have not really talked about Alyssa Pilley. I know Stephen and I discussed her a few weeks ago, but the player out of Utah, if you haven't been able to see her, go watch Alyssa Pilley's highlight tape. She has that dog in her, and I love players who have played multiple sports for a good amount of time. She finished All-State in shot put as well. So that's a player that I want to have on my team, absolutely no doubt. Appreciate everybody coming in with us as we come into our first guest of the evening, and I cannot overstate how happy we are to have this man on. If you have not seen him in the women's basketball space, the basketball space period, he is one of one just about everywhere. I cannot list all of his accolades, but we got Mark Schindler on the podcast with us. Mark, how you doing tonight, man?
Dude, first off, I'm really good. I appreciate the kind words. It's hard to live up to, but no, I as soon as you and Steven reached out to me about doing this, I was like, hell yeah, man! You guys have been really great to me since I've got to know you guys. So, no, I'm just excited for tonight because I feel like a lot of craziness is going to happen after the first pick. So I'm excited to get into it, man.
I think that's the funny thing. This felt kind of like a cemented draft a few weeks ago. And then those last two rounds of the NCAA tournament happened, and it seemed like everything went kind of topsy-turvy. Like the discussion for Kamilla Cardoso went from around 6 or 7, maybe late first round, up to the top 3. Georgia Amore went back into school. She took her name out of consideration, and so Angel Reese is moving up higher. And so that's what I want to get your take on first. After Caitlin Clark, where do you see things falling into place as we go through the first round of the draft?
Yeah, no, I think that's such a good point because I was somebody who was extremely high on Georgia Amore. I had her going 4th to the Sparks before she decided to go back. And I think for me, that paves the way for Kamilla to go either 3rd or 4th now. Like I thought, just based on the way things were going to go out need-wise, like I thought the Sparks need to come in here and get the 2 best players that they could in their spots. That's where they're at. That's where the roster's at. And I think, just with how things might shake out with this, like I wouldn't rule out Kamilla going 3rd to Chicago. I think that's an entire possibility here, especially like, Chicago trading up the way that they did. I think that also signifies stuff that we can get into as well. But yeah, I mean, off rip, that's my biggest takeaway. I think exactly like you said, Kamilla has risen up quite a bit over the last month.
Now, my concern is that with the Sky losing, trading away Kahleah Copper, you have to replace the offense that she brings. You have to replace the energy that she brings. That you also have to pick up a new face of the franchise. And with a top 3 pick, it seems to me that's what you're looking for. And when I watched Rickea Jackson over the years, not just in Tennessee, but how she's improved since Mississippi State, I like the fact that she could come into the league and put up 15 points a game. I feel like she is right now, say, you get 50% of Ryan Howard, what Ryan Howard did for Atlanta. With Cardoso, she doesn't have that type of offensive game. And even though Teresa Weatherspoon was a defensive-oriented player, defensive-oriented coach, you would assume, and Kamilla Cardoso could bring that, she's not going to come in and be that face of the franchise necessarily because she's still going to be playing behind Elizabeth Williams. So is there any drawbacks to taking Cardoso with the 3rd pick that you wouldn't get with Jackson, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, point blank, I have Rickea going 3rd overall. That's who I would take 3rd, but I think just based on just in general, like I do think it's a pretty high likelihood that Kamilla goes 3rd, which I understand. But I think exactly like you're hitting on is what's so difficult with where the roster's at right now. Like you throw in the trade that brought in Bree Turner, obviously. I mean, you have Bree Turner, you have Elizabeth Williams, You have Izzy Harrison coming back from injury this year, and all three are on protected veteran contracts. So I think that's where it gets like kind of like you're hitting on. Like, you're not drafting Kamilla third to sit her behind Elizabeth Williams, I don't think. Like, I think if you're doing that, you're saying, okay, let's get this show going. We're going to have you starting right away. It's a lot easier said than done to tell that to a group of players that has money no matter what. And that's putting a coaching staff in a really interesting spot. So I'll just be interested to see how that that gets handled if that's what ends up happening. But I agree with you with Rickea. Like, I think you look around the league at players who are 6'2", that have a little bit of shake to them, that can score from all three levels. Like, obviously still growing as a three-point shooter, but I think in a lot of ways too, Tennessee just did not showcase a lot of what she could do because of what the roster was. And granted, part of that was due to how many injuries they had, but they really didn't have consistent guard play. They had a lot of issues with spacing. And so, yeah, that definitely, like, you can point out that her handle can improve and continue to get better. She can be more efficient. But I think when you look at what she was asked to do within the confines of that offense, I don't really have any concerns about the efficiency. I think she showed, like, when she had the reads available, she was capable of being a playmaker. Especially as we saw late on in the year when they actually, had her just running some spread pick and roll stuff.
Yes.
I think, to me, like, just when you have a player with that size and that kind of skill, every single player who has that in the league right now is a star. And pretty much every player who had those kind of markings at the point that Rickea is at has been a really productive player in the W. So, I mean, I'm with you. I think it's hard for me to look at her game and what her context was and not think that she could be even better in the W.
Let's delve into that more, because I know you are a guy who's watched endless amounts of film, really more than I can comprehend. I've seen your posts, man, and I'm like, I don't know how this man gets outside. I know you have a dog that you have to walk, and I don't know how you're walking your dog when you're still chopping up tape.
Just got back from that. That's why I was 4 minutes late. So.
So let's talk about Rickea's, like, how she was working in the pick and roll, because I saw a good amount of that later in the season, as you said, where she was bringing the ball up the floor and not just, the first initiator of the offense, but she was the one initiating pick and roll, getting Tennessee into their offense. When I saw the mock draft that Jackie Powell, good colleague of both of ours, broke down for Yahoo Sports, she said there were kind of concerns about that handle. Is it something that she has just a lack of skill where she doesn't have, say, a left hand or a right hand, or her passing is a little bit not what you would want from a wing of that size? Or is it just something that she hasn't developed yet because, as you said, Tennessee was limited in what they could do with roster and their offense?
I think there's a lot of ways to go with that. Like, number one, I think you can't really just grow a handle. Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, I think in some ways you either have it or you don't. You can refine it. You can get it better. Like, part of her thing is she doesn't play super low to the ground because she has a little bit of a higher base. And to me, like, she's not a wing. Like, I think she's a pretty clear-cut power forward. I don't think she's a small forward. Like, I think she can play some minutes at the three. And that's not a knock. I just think in general, like, with where the game is headed and where I think her skill set's at, I think she's going to be a 4 in the W at her best position. Whether or not teams agree with me or not, we'll see. But that's where I would be at right now. I don't even think it would be a concern. Like, I know motor has been thrown out. I don't agree with that. I think it's worth noting, like, she dealt with the lower leg injury early on in the year and then I think she had a respiratory thing coming back from that as well. That clearly hampered her at the beginning of SEC play. And you have to take into account as well how much of the offense she had to create, like you're talking about. Like, she had, I believe, north of a 30% usage rate, at least in SEC play. And they had to do a lot. Like, they didn't have a trusted point guard. Like, Jasmine Powell really came along and was better throughout the year, but like, that was not somebody who got defended without the ball. So a lot of it was they had to run some pretty time-heavy sets in order to get things going and where they wanted to be and get her the ball. And it takes a lot out of you. Like, I do think becoming a more consistent defender is going to be important in the next level. I think she had moments this year. She's clearly capable of doing it. But also, like, I think it's the kind of thing where, when I first started scouting, like, 5 years ago, I used to be way harder on players for that. Like, why aren't you giving full-out effort both ways all the time? There are, like, 4 players in the W who are capable of doing that right now. Like, Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Alyssa Thomas. It's the MVP candidates. That's what separates people. Like, it is really hard to do that all the time when you're tasked with doing so much. So yeah, there's definitely consistency stuff that can continue to improve. But to me, with Rickea, I think it's more about continuing to expand her game out and playing in a place that is like going to get her to her spots. I think she's a player like we're talking about with where her handle's at right now. I think a lot of what is going to be good for her is, being very intentional about where she gets the ball and how to get it to her. Because like you point at that Tennessee game against South Carolina, the SEC championship game, or before the SEC championship game, and I thought part of what was so good about that, like, yes, it was pick and roll, but it was like, okay, I'm coming off an Iverson into this empty side action, or I'm going to bring the ball up, and if I have the space, I'm going to shoot it. Like, it was a lot of getting her the ball in different areas and different settings and scenarios and just letting her read the court. And I thought, to me, that wasn't most of Tennessee's offense this year. I don't know why that wasn't their offense most of the year, because it clearly was their best offense. But I think, to me, like, if you get her at the 4 spot with her quickness, with her size, with her efficiency and her touch, like, that there are very few teams in the league that can match up with that. I think not to keep going super long, but like the 4 spot is the most changing spot in the league right now. Everyone talks about guard play, which true. That's very like a good point. But I think the 4 spot is like the spot that is just evolving greatly, because you look at the Aces and what they're doing. Okay, the Aces, their best lineups are, Chelsea, Jackie, Kelsey, Asia, and then they always had a rotating person at the 4 spot trying to figure it out. That was their linchpin. Like, okay, we'll have Alicia Clark play here. That was huge for them last year. You look at teams throughout, like, I think the Liberty at times struggled to find a 4th or 5th player at times that could really hold lineups together. You can even point to the Sky during their title run. They always kind of had part of what made that team so great is they had the ability to flex so much with what they did in that spot. But like, you can't just be a player who just stands still, catch and shoot from the corner. Like, you have to be able to defend. You have to be able to get out and play. Like, and that's why I think we've seen so many teams start to go, like the Sun playing at times like 4 guards last year, if you want to count DB as a guard. Like, and so for me, like a player like Rickea coming in, I think in an organization that I'm hoping is going to be really forward thinking, I think the Sky could really get crafty and say, okay, we're going to commit to you being this 4 for us and figure out what that looks like. Obviously, some lineup changes and stuff, but to me, I just think the sky is the limit for what Rickea can do.
I like that pun there, man. That was solid. That was a solid.
Not even intended, but yeah.
That's a really good deep dive on Rickea Jackson, because motor is something that I've seen brought up, and it confused me when I saw that, because you're asking a player to play against some of the best talent in college, twice, 4 times a season, when you have South Carolina in that same conference, when you have even the lower level teams that didn't necessarily make headway in the tournament. And what is it? Over that one weekend, that first weekend of the tournament, she scored 63 points, went, 20, 22, 9, and 8 against South Carolina, and in back-to-back weekends had them very close to beating the team that ended up going undefeated and winning the championship when she was the primary offensive option. That's why I never want to overstate those things. When teams are focusing all of their intensity on you defensively, for you to still perform, that sells me. That absolutely sells me. I want to shift gears, because on Live at the Draft, the crew was just talking to Cameron Brink, and people have been talking about her in the chat as well, about Brink somehow falling to that number 7 pick, as we got our man Stephen Garner coming in live from Sky headquarters. Stephen, what's up, man? I almost want to get out of the way, because I know y'all two are about to go into talking about Spain pick and roll and floppy sets and every single possibility that these players could work. But how's it going out there, man?
Man, it's going well. There's a nice little crowd forming outside. When I pulled up, there was a decent 20 to 30 people in line already. I don't know if they started letting people into the actual spot yet, but they said they were expecting somewhere over 150, maybe a little bit closer to 200. So, I mean, that's a very solid turnaround for a team that's obviously invested in the draft in comparison to years in the past. So, yeah, it's a nice little environment, nice ambiance. I definitely have some live footage coming from there once people get settled in and everything.
I see you flexing on them too. You came out with the accessorizing. No, you got to show it, man. You can't shake your head. You got to show it now.
Man, stop it. I'm chilling. I'm chilling.
I mean, my one question is, it's like 70 degrees. He's still got the beanie going. That's my one question.
He's a beanie man, man.
It's not. Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen you without a beanie on, man. To be honest.
This is the real
Steve.
beanie man.
Full-time beanie man. Yeah.
And that's from a Jamaican right here. That's saying something. I like the chance. I do want to get both your thoughts on Cameron Brink. I think her stock has bounced around a bit over her college career, and none of it haven't really. It doesn't seem like it's anything she's done. It's just been the external forces around her. And so, where do you think Cameron Brink falls in this draft? Because I think at times she was as high as number 2, as low as like number 5 or 6. And I know some Sky fans want her, but I think it's a kind of a discourse on what she would be able to do for the team. Where do you see Cameron Brink fitting in the league? Not necessarily with the Sky.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would be pretty surprised if she drops out of the lottery. I would be surprised if she even drops past 3. I'd be surprised if she does drop to 3. Like, I think to me, I know that she's bounced around mocks, but for me, she's been like the clear cut number 2 even before Paige dropped out of the draft. I think part of what's going to be really interesting and I wrote about this the other day, part of what I think is interesting about this top part of the draft is it gives you like 3 very different ideas of players and versatility in the front court. Or I guess you could extend that out to Aaliyah and say 4 in the top 5. I think all 4 of Aaliyah, Cam, Rickea, and Kamilla bring different kinds of versatility and consistency. And so for me, I really value versatility. I think becoming, quote unquote dominant at one thing outside of defense is going to be a growth area for Cam. To me, and I was actually just talking about this with my dad because he was asking me about this. I don't think Cam is ever going to be a 1A leading scorer on a championship team. I think she could become somebody who averages 18 to 20 points a game really efficiently, can score the ball in multiple ways, is a really good facilitator at her size, can put the ball in the deck, and winds up one of the best defenders we see in the next 10 years. I think some of the foul stuff has been way overwrought in discourse. I get it because we're just down to the to the wire. It's definitely something she's gonna have to improve on. But I think when you look at how she sees the game and importantly how she attacks things and goes out of her way to be so disruptive defensively, she is a special defensive prospect. So to me, she is a clear cut number 2. But I think when you take Kamilla on top of that, I think Kamilla presents a very different idea. I think she has some versatility in terms of being able to grow into doing more than 1 or 2 things in pick and roll defense. But I think I could understand why a coach might look and say, I want to take her at 2 because you can't there are things from Cam that you can take off the table right now, right? If you have somebody strong, you can deny some of her post ups, you can make her become more of a jump shooter. Kamilla is going to be 6'7" no matter what. 6'7" with good hands, able to establish and seal and just demolish the glass on offense. And so, again, I would take Cam too, but I think that's part of why things are so all over the place because you can value what Rickea does at the 4, or you can even, look at, again, we're talking about, look at what Kamilla does. And I know a lot of more coaching-oriented people are pretty enamored with what Kamilla can do at this next level.
Yeah, Stephen,
Yeah.
your thoughts too, yeah.
Yeah, I think Mark made a bunch of great points when speaking to Cameron. The thing for me that pops out whenever I've watched her hoop, and especially even more so looking at her film and being able to slow things down, her processing speed of everything on both ends of the floor, and the way she pairs that with her IQ. I feel like you can talk about skills, you can talk about all of these tangible things, but the one thing that's gonna translate to the W is that IQ and is that processing speed. Now, obviously, the processing is gonna see a little bit more of an uptick because the game is faster on the W level. But I do think that's something that's gonna lend itself to her being effective upon even just starting in the league. And then you start looking at her skills. I think maybe one of the biggest things with her on the offensive side, I think Mark touched on a lot of her inside the arc stuff. She started to shoot more threes. I think for her to be optimized on the W level, she's going to have to stretch it to be able to shoot at least league average from there. And I think, it's well documented how hard of a worker she is. how she even got to the point that she is now with spacing. I think that's going to be something that's going to really be a weapon for her. And then naturally, with her being able to deck it, she's going to be able to garner at least some type of closeout and then put defenses in rotation from there. I think she's really going to be able to build like a boat in a sense in terms of her offensive foundation from that. And then I think a lot of the defense stuff really is just going to come naturally just with her getting more reps. Her body of work really speaks for itself or speaks for herself with that. And I do think she's not going to drop lower than 3, in my opinion. I do think it's kind of hard to gauge because I feel like there's going to be some gamesmanship from the Sparks because obviously they have 2 and 4, and they're going to try to get the players that they want most. And obviously that's going to succumb to Sky to kind of being a little bit in limbo in response to that, kind of reacting more than dictating with the pick that they truly want. So I could see her going at 2, but I could also see her falling to the Sky and potentially them being able to take her. But my thing with all of the picks that the Sky have and the way things are aligned sequencing-wise with the picks, there's just no wrong answer for them. It's just a matter of obviously where they're trying to go and how they're able to piece it together behind that with the 7th pick, just from my perspective.
We got a lot of comments on that in the chat. Clark Lorenzen, if Brink somehow falls, that works too. Jackson, Brink, and Cardoso, I'll take any of them. Crystal Vegan Smith said Rickea and Angel Reese would be the smart combo for the Sky to take. And I think Stephen, I know we had some discussion on that. And then also, Crystal said that she has a strange feeling that the Sparks are picking Rickea Jackson. That would be an interesting wrinkle. They lost Nneka Ogwumike to Seattle, and Jordan Canada went to Atlanta in that trade. So the Sparks are kind of adjusting their focus as well. Just quick hit, I guess, go back and forth. Steven, first, do you think that the Sparks would pull a sneak fast one and pick Rickea Jackson in number 2 or number 4?
I mean, by all the accounts that we've had from mocks and people with some semblance of insider info, it seems like they're pretty much set on Brink and Cardoso. It's a matter of obviously how they sequence the picks, but it seems like they've been locked in on those 2, and it's gonna be hard to kind of reroute them from that because of where they are standing wise in the draft order.
Mark, what about you? Do you think that the Sparks would pull up and take Rickea?
I don't know, man. I think it's so tough for me because, this is where, I honestly, I want to work in the front office someday. So it's something I'll have to work on. But, when I think about it, I'm just just take the player you want. If there is a player there that you want, I just do not see a point in messing around with it. Commit to it, make it happen. And I'm sure that they will. I think a lot of this has just probably been smokescreen stuff. But, to me, I'm with this, I just do not want it. I want to play with my food. I want to make the pick happen and just commit to it and have it go through.
Mark, you brought up food, man. That's your second most famous
Is that my
thing.
sign to leave?
I can't now, man. We got to get you out to the city so you can. Have you been to Chicago? I actually don't know this. I know you're in Ohio, but I don't know if you've been to Chicago.
Yeah. I went to Chicago for the All-Star. What was that, 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago.
The famous All-Star game.
How was that 2 years ago? That was I got to experience Chi there, and that was fun. I definitely need to get out again this year, hopefully. But yeah.
Were you able to get an Italian beef sandwich though?
I feel like no, but I don't really care to. So
oh, come on, Mark.
Mark
I'm gonna take you off the screen right now.
I don't like jerk beef. I'm sorry. I don't like au jus sauce. I don't like a juicy sandwich. I would prefer to be able to eat something without having a bib on. So
basically, he doesn't know what an Italian beef is.
No. Mark is this is why I respect Mark a lot, because he does the work on everything, and he has the wildest food takes I've ever seen, and he stands behind every single one of them.
I just don't. I do not like getting messy. I can't stand getting messy. I hate barbecue, to be honest. Any barbecue that requires me eating it with my hands instead of a fork and knife is no.
You got Steven crying.
I'm just sending myself deeper and deeper down.
I see when you asked the question, Chris. Having had these conversations with Mark in person, I'm like, you opened up a rabbit hole that is
yeah.
My man said playing with his food, and I couldn't. I'm an improv graduate. I couldn't leave that one. behind. The funny thing is I didn't even jump to that. The last time I went to an Ethiopian restaurant, the whole idea is that you just eat everything without utensils, and I'm like, man, you're missing out. You can't eat Ethiopian food either.
I'll bring utensils with me.
Real quick, the draft is about to start, and we have our consensus number one. But just very quickly, I want to get in a shout out to our sponsors. First of all, you see our guys on screen here looking fresh, and that is because presumably they hit up our sponsor, CD1 Price Cleaners. CD1 Price Cleaners, fast service, low prices all the time. If you need to bring in your jerseys, if you're like Steven, and then you need to bring in your inferior university apparel to get it pressed up, bring it to CD1 Price Cleaners. You have area rugs like the beautiful rug I'm sitting on here in the CHGO studio. You can bring that into CD1 Price Cleaners. They will wash and fold your laundry for you if you can't get to the laundromat or if your washer dryer is broken at home. And not only that, if you go to chgo.cd1.com, that's chgo.cdone.com, you can pick up a delivery or in-store coupon without fail. So CD1 Price Cleaners, as I said, fast service, low prices, always available every single time. And as you see our set here, we got our ice cold Coors Light in the bucket, but we also have our ice cold Coors Light right here in hand. I have not popped it yet because I'm waiting for that Sky number 3 pick. But when you're sitting down to watch the WNBA draft, when you check out the Sky in the preseason, and when they have their opening game this season, you want to reach for the can with the blue mountains, and when those mountains are blue, you know it's cold and true Coors Light. Ooh, you hear that sound effect. That's so sweet. That wasn't even me.
That's a really nice sound. I can't lie.
Right? That wasn't even me. That was all Lawrence. Coors Light. Honestly, it is the most refreshing beer that I've had in my entire lifetime. And that's not just for the ad, folks. That's for real. That is absolutely for real. Coors Light, drink responsibly, Golden, Colorado. It's interesting. I like what you said earlier, Mark, about the Sky wanting them to be forward thinking. And I know we had you on, and Steven, you guys are immersed in the X's and O's of basketball and how teams fit together, how players work together well. But I think I was talking with Lawrence about social capital kind of falling off after the Sky won their championship with the way that they were unable to keep players in free agency, and with not getting Skylar Diggins-Smith in free agency this year, without getting Nneka Ogwumike. I was talking about needing to get that face of the franchise with that first pick, with that number 3 pick, with the number 7 pick, but also updating your facilities and amenities. So not only if you get the players, you keep the players and you entice new players to come. With your travels around the league, what have you seen in terms of, if you've gotten rumblings from teams or insiders about how teams are thinking about that, how they're thinking about moving into the future and updating their facilities, franchise, to be able to be more player friendly?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's incredibly important. It's where we're at. Like, talking to Courtney Williams when she got introduced in Minnesota the other day, like, Minnesota's had those facilities. They were the first team that really invested and had that from the Wolves ownership, or I mean, I should say the Taylors. And she talked about, she's like, this is stuff that I've never had in my entire time. And like, as awesome of organizations as, Connecticut and Atlanta are, like, those are teams that are still catching up to get to that point. So I think it's a huge portion of it when like pretty much every major free agent, especially the top of the top, have talked about how important it was for them to go to a place where they had a dedicated locker room, where they had, places that were able to really showcase them as like true professional athletes. Like, it's crucial, man.
Yeah, it's honestly really, really interesting, and I want to see how they're going to move forward with that. Steven, I know we've talked about that at length, but how important do you feel it is for the Sky to be able to do these things in tandem, pick up that new franchise faces? Caitlin Clark just drafted to the Indiana Fever in a surprise move. Really, I thought that Indiana might go out on a limb and pick up a reach type of player. But how important is it for the Sky to do those two things in tandem? Pick up these new players, pick up franchise pieces, and also update their facilities and make sure that they're moving into the new era of WNBA basketball.
Yeah, I think those were the two biggest things. When you transition from an elite all W type of player, type of talent like Kalia Copper, one thing you have to do is replenish your draft picks, and Jeff Pagliocca and company did a sensational job in doing just that immediately. And they got into multiple spots in this draft, past just one. So big kudos to them on that. That's extremely important in process in terms of this transition. And the next step is obviously, like you said, getting those facilities. I think that you have to marry the two. It can't just be one or the other if you're trying to quickly ascend into the contending realm. And you can't get there without, like I said, having both. So there, like we've talked about before, there's been no updates as far as the Sky making those transitional points in progress to actually having their own facilities. It's been conversations, and they've been talking about mapping out the city and finding out and being able to consider multiple locations. But there's been no traction there. They got to get that moving with these picks coming in this season. I think time is of the essence, and I mean it's really an arms race at this point. You're not going to attract the top end talents that you need to help facilitate towards contending desires if you don't have those amenities, and those are really just basic needs or basic necessities rather. They're not asking for anything extravagant. They're just asking for the bare minimum to obviously help to cultivate the skills and just generally bring in the talent that you need to contend. So can't get one without the other, and you can't compete with those other teams if you can't compare to what they have in terms of facilities. So they got to get it together on that end before they can really stamp themselves where they desire to be, and clearly where Teresa Witherspoon and Jeff Pagliocca desire to be. So I think it's important, and I think an onus has been placed upon the front office to where they're being held to account to, the decisions and the swiftness at which they're moving with those decisions.
Yeah, I'll say really quick before I got to bounce because I got to start doing some other coverage stuff. But I think exactly like Steven's hitting on, like there just can't be any half steps in how they approach this stuff. I think that would be the biggest mistake, is to try and do anything where, it's just like, well, let's just try and make the playoffs, or like, what if we try and do this? Like, I think they're in a spot right now where, especially with the way that the CBA is up to be renegotiated in 2026 if they opt out. I think there's a really interesting spot for teams to get very creative here that know, hey, we are not going to be a contender in the next couple of years. We're not going to be a real playoff threat in the next couple of years. If we really just bear down, focus on getting better in all of our facets, and really focusing on building out a really strong talent base, like next year's draft is like, this is a solid draft, especially when you talk about the top end. But like next year's draft, there are players that will go in the second round that I would have in the lottery right now in this class. And that's without including any of the players who I think could return, for 2026. I think there's just a real opportunity to be super forward thinking with making as much happen as possible with the draft and internal development. And I think, if there are one or two teams that really approach it that way and are careful with it, they could come out looking pretty clean on the other end, but TBD. So I'm excited to see what this guy can do with that tonight. But guys, I appreciate y'all having me on as always.
Mark, appreciate you coming on. Follow Mark on Twitter at MG_Schindler. That's MG_Schindler. And sincerely, please check out Mark's work. He puts his heart and soul into this, and it's a pleasure to have you on again. Hope you have a good rest of your night. Don't work too hard. I'll say that.
We'll see. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
Thanks,
man. All right, Mark.
Mark Schindler, always a pleasure. Steven, you out there. What's the scene like, man? What's the scene like outside Sky HQ?
Yeah, I was about to head downstairs in a second. I know the second pick of the draft is coming up soon. Obviously, there's going to be alignment with the Sky's upcoming pick from that. So I'm getting ready to jet downstairs, go ahead and shoot some B-roll so that the people that we appreciate for hopping on the broadcast with us today can kind of get a feel for the ambiance in person as well. So, but like I said, I can see it a little bit out this window I'm by right now. It's a nice little group of people just kind of hovered around. The energy is up. There's a lot of optimism around everything that's going on, which I think is important to ultimately get to, obviously, fans being confident in the plan that Teresa Witherspoon and Jeff Pagliocca have in place. You got to get to the optimistic part before you can get to the confident part, and I think they're getting there, and I think this turnout that we're seeing is certainly a sign of where things are. And obviously the way they execute tonight will indicate where they're headed speed-wise within that process, but I think they're in a good space right now, and it's pretty awesome to see, considering a lot of the inaccurate discourse around women's basketball just generally speaking, but especially in Chicago. So to see this type of turnout for a draft watch party, not a game, not a practice, not preseason, not fan engagement, just literally a draft watch party, I think is important. And I think it's a sign of where things are headed. So they're in a good space.
I mean, I'll say this, we have 150 people watching right now, which is pretty damn cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of likes. We got a lot of people talking in the chat, and it's salient discourse. I like how you put that, Stephen. You know, the inaccurate discourse around women's basketball, but we got a lot of salient discourse in here. You know, discussing about the picks. People presciently talking about, you know, will the Sparks take Rickea Jackson? Well, how will that affect the Sky's plans? Montana Shy, you know, Region Rev out in Gary, always a stalwart for us. Montana Shy. Would the Sky take Cameron if she falls? You know, I'm thinking the second is Jackson from Region Rev. That's another person who thinks that Los Angeles might pick Rickea Jackson. And that would really throw a wrench in things. So Mark was right. I think this is going to be a wild draft after this Caitlin Clark pick. And, you know, now they're on the clock. And I think everybody is waiting to see what happens with this. I will say I got here, took a divvy part of the way down, and I ended up rolling down Kedzie. And there were people outside waiting, but I also saw people walking, you know, from south of the expressway, a few blocks that had on Sky gear, who were walking to get in line for the draft up at Revolution. So the excitement is there. I remember a conversation I had after I was umpiring softball last year, where I was at the I went to grab some water because it was a hot night, but one drink before I headed back home. And there were a few guys there who were talking about how much they had started watching women's basketball. Now, granted, they were sports betting type guys, but they were talking about Caitlin Clark last year, and they were excited for what she was going to bring. Paige Beckers, they were excited about her. They had been talking about even Angel Reese at that point in time. And this was last year in the summertime after the tournament last year. So the LSU-Iowa game had gone down. The Iowa-South Carolina game had gone down. So I think it's all picking up that we've already seen. We got our sponsor in the chat right now, Charlie the Bacon Guy, saying, hey, the Region Rev. He must be an Indiana dude, man.
No, he's in Woodridge, Illinois.
Woodridge? What?
Yep.
That's a long way from Gary, bro.
Yeah, well, hey.
Montana with the shout out to Law says, miss you treating Carm when he's going off the rails. That sounds like a story.
That just sounds like every day on the Bears podcast, which I have not done in a month, and it's been a little bit less stressful. I got to be honest.
Yeah, we gotta keep Lawrence as stress free as possible.
Yeah.
So Lawrence is like the master splinter of our producers. He is out here training everybody up so that it's someday he can just like sit back, fade into the background.
That is the plan. Yeah, that is true.
We got some. You know what? This is an interesting one. Brandon Rodriguez. Reese has no mid range, bad footwork, crazy shot selection. I don't think she'll be great versus pros every night. I say that's interesting, Brandon, because I don't doubt that you are going off of having watched games. But I think a lot of those things that you're talking about can be developed, you know, depending on where she goes and how much she wants it. And I think the second part is the most important. There's no question Angel Reese wants it. There's no question about that. Angel Reese wants to be great. And I think we've been able to see that in the last 2-3 years because of the increased coverage of women's basketball.
Yeah, I'll give a quick thought on that, and then I'm going to shoot downstairs. But I think maybe the biggest thing, and Angel has a lot of gravity about her, gravity off the court, gravity on the court, and leadership. I think that fire is a weapon. It's something that only a handful of players have to the extent that she does already in the W, and that can, you know, have the disposition to show it and to show it in a way that's conducive to winning. Only so many players have that, and for her to already have that in her toolbox before she even steps foot onto the stage after she hears her name called in the draft, that's important to see. In addition to her work ethic, I think no one's questioning her work ethic. And again, you can assess her game however you want. That's obviously objective, but I think what's stamped is, you know, the things that I talked about: her intangibles, her desire to win, her abilities to galvanize troops and be a leader in that, and to that extent, vocally, but also not just vocally, also by action, showing it And I think those things are important to assess when you're looking at or projecting forward for a player that is a talent the likes of Angel Reese. And I think the other big thing with the Sky on the clock, and I'm getting ready to head downstairs, I think the other big thing with Angel is her defense and her rebounding. She wants it, but she also knows how to go about making it happen on the defensive side of the floor. That versatility that she showed at multiple stretches when LSU won a championship last season, and then obviously they came up short of that goal this season, but she showed that in multiple stretches as well, and growth even more from what she showed last season to this season. That discipline and that ability to guard multiple positions and be an anchor of sorts, while also being obviously an emotional leader and a literal leader in action as well. I think those things are all important to look at it as a whole and not just kind of assess only the weaknesses, but look at her strengths and look at how well those strengths will translate to the professional level. So that's kind of all I got on Angel. I'm sure we will likely have more conversations about her after the third pick, but I'm going to go ahead and head downstairs and see what's going on with the fans and everything. So I'll be back in touch with you all sometime shortly after that third pick is taken.
Stephen PridGeon-Garner, erstwhile co-host of the show, the best X's and O's man this side of the Mississippi River. We're going to get him back in later on tonight. But as you saw, I know you're already seeing it in the chat, Cameron Brink went number 2 to the Los Angeles Sparks. I want to be clear with everybody, just in case, Chicago Sky fan in France, I think there might be a tendency for people to think, LA went with a local product. There is a long distance between Los Angeles and Palo Alto.
A little bit.
They're not close. So there's no locality between those two. They went with a quality player who is going to be a nice supplement for, I think, what Kurt Miller wants to do both offensively and defensively. And they got kind of what I was saying about the Sky. They were able to replace some of the lost offense with Nneka Ogwumike. So now the most important thing, the Chicago Sky are on the clock, and this is the big moment, really. Will they take Rickea Jackson? Will they take Kamilla Cardoso? As you see Cameron Brink right there.
I figured I made the graphic. I should put it on the screen.
No, it's good. I wish they'd had another picture of her next to Holly Rowe, because seeing Holly talk to Cameron Brink.
I'll be honest. I did just see. I saw a picture of her next to Kevin Hart.
Oh gosh,
which is quite ridiculous looking.
That's I didn't realize that Holly was that short, because Cameron's 6'4", but she had her arm around Holly, and she had her arm basically around Holly's ear at that point. Oh, we're gonna get this Cameron Brink Kevin Hart photo?
Yeah, I want to show this one.
Yes,
please.
Please. Let's see this.
Find this.
It's like we got to make sure that we get something that we can use, and 2, we get something that's not too risky. Kevin Hart once again pokes fun at himself with photos with Cameron Brink. Yeah, y'all got to see this one.
That's pretty good.
Look at that. Like, perspective being what it is, she is going to hit her head on that door frame behind her, and Kevin is going to just walk through comfortably. Yeah. Kevin Hart is one of those dudes that if you put him behind one of those half doors at the coat check, you're just going to see the top of his eyes. You know what I'm saying? But Cameron Brink, that's a solid pick for the Sparks, but I think we have a bit more stability than maybe we expected with the draft, because it was up in the air. Were they going to take Rickea Jackson? That's what we were saying. People were saying in the chat. I think there was some talk about it, even in mock drafts as soon as yesterday, that they might pick Rickea Jackson up. Our fearless leader in the chat, Kevin K. Duck, saying the Sky are on the clock too. Y'all know what it is. This is the big time. I personally am in favor of Rickea Jackson. I've been saying it for weeks. I'm going to say it again. I love Kamilla Cardoso, what she does. I absolutely love her story that she chose for herself, that she wanted to come to the U.S. to play basketball. And so she didn't go straight to South Carolina. She went to Tennessee. She went to high school in Tennessee. That's where she ended up going to school. And for a 15-year-old from Brazil at her height at that point to be dropped into Tennessee to play ball, just to play ball, was crazy in itself. And then she's made herself a player who cannot be passed up. So the Sky are on the clock right now, and Kathy's at the microphone. And they picked Kamilla Cardoso. The Sky picked Kamilla Cardoso at number 3. Man, this is gonna be interesting, man.
6'7", 8 up, Iowa in the championship.
I mean,
We need it.
Yeah, that's really the big move. That's important to talk about. Hannah Stolke was a top flight player in this tournament, but when she was up against Kamilla Cardoso, she looked like she was a baby out there.
Yeah.
She couldn't get anything going. They had her on the bench for long stretches of time. But Kamilla Cardoso going to the Sky, that's going to be a big move. Carnival restaurant is celebrating right now. We got a Brazilian in the city.
Let's go.
We're gonna have Carnival in the city. Well, the Carnival was in March, so yeah. But
Hey, every day is Carnival when
I like
Kamilla
that.
Cardoso's
I like
here.
that. You know what? Honestly, let's be real about this. She is a player whose motor will never be questioned. She's a player whose motor will never be questioned. Jonathan Warren already saying yes, sir. Cardoso, the Giggities. I like that. I like that avatar. Her upside is tremendous, and she's a winner. Got a new skyscraper in town, said K-Duck. I like
that's
that
good.
too.
I like that.
And
Put that on the tweet.
Kamilla was styling at the draft too. She had the red suit on. She looked like she was ready out there. And we got the live look in the draft headquarters. Y'all can't see this. Jeff Pagliocca looks about as satisfied as I have ever seen him in his tenure as GM. And he's been having to work since he got the job back last fall. So they just they're celebrating in the draft room, and he had the look like he allowed himself that satisfied smile. I said that I was going to do it, so let's crack this bad boy right here.
Let's go.
Shout out to Coors Light. We got our first pick down, so we're going to take a little sip of that.
Ooh.
The mountains are blue.
Feels so good when it hits your lips.
Weatherspoon loves defense. She will fit in well. No, we were saying the exact thing. And I think it is true that they need defense. I want to see how she fares against the bigs in the league, because as much as this is going towards a wing-oriented league where you have to have a quality two guard or small forward or a forward who can play 2 or 3 of those positions, you still got Jonquel Jones in the league. You still got Brittany Griner being productive. You still have Nneka Ogwumike that you're going to have to play against. You still have Breanna Stewart that you're going to have to guard. And, Kamilla Cardoso was able to handle switches. Dawn Staley made sure that she had 5 players on the floor at any one time who could play defense against just about 5 positions. That's what was so cool about South Carolina in the tournament. But it's different going to this level. It's different going to the professional level. We haven't talked about those Diana Taurasi quotes about Caitlin Clark, but it's true. I want to be claro for everybody. Professionals want to teach these rookies what it means to be in this business. That is true of just about any competitive enterprise. Basketball, baseball, football, hockey, track, anything you can think of.
Roller derby?
The roller derby? Oh, contact sport?
Them rookies.
Yo, they want to let people know, like, this is how it's going to be. And I think that's good. You can't take it easy on people, because for every time that happens, they lose something. You got to put a book I read a long time ago was talking about the best players, and they have the iron in their spine. There's something where they won't back down. And to Cardoso's credit, I don't think she will back down from those challenges. However, I did think that Jackson was the better pick in terms of replacing the offense you were losing from Kalia Copper, that trade to Phoenix. LA back on the clock now. This is going to be interesting. Who they take at number 4?
I mean, do they just go with Rickea?
I don't think you pass on Rickea Jackson at that point, and they didn't. Rickea Jackson at number 4 going to the Sparks. She's Angel and Rickea, the SEC, they both went with the silver outfits. Rickea, man, she looks like she's about to be on stage at the Apollo. She's got the Patti LaBelle type look going on. That's dope. But Rickea Jackson going to Los Angeles. So Los Angeles re-upped in a pretty short amount of time, getting Cameron Brink and Rickea Jackson. That's a formidable front court. I want to see how they grow. But I do also want to see that first LA Sparks and Chicago Sky matchup. Put that on your calendar, because that's going to be interesting. I think with those months that Rickea was listed as being the consensus pick to go to Chicago, how is she going to play that matchup? Is there going to be a sense of, they passed over me, they were the team that they wanted, or the player that they wanted, and now she's not? And then she's going to be going up against Cardoso, Izzy Harrison, Elizabeth Williams. So that'll be a good showcase for Rickea Jackson. But going back to Kamilla Cardoso, we got our quotes in the chat. Montana Shy said, "Law, you need to get a Cardoso thumbs up now."
I just responded to that. I tried. Trust me, I looked.
All right, we got another guest coming in. Another Illinois State guest. I don't know why all these ISU people are coming on this show, knowing that I went to the best university in South Central Illinois. But we got our man Calvin Wetzel of Her Hoop Stats. Honestly, so happy to have you on the show, Calvin. And I see you with the Chicago Sky shirt on. Respect, man. I see you with that. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great. It's so good to be on with you, Chris. I was listening earlier when you threw some shade at Steven's Illinois State apparel, and I thought about changing my shirt and putting on something Illinois State just to have you outnumbered. But it's the Chicago Sky's night, so I had to stick with this shirt.
You see that? That's a man who was dedicated to the craft and to the sport. Because if I was in your position, Calvin, I would have thrown on all my Bradley gear. I swear. Oh no, I respect that, man. We are 4 picks deep, and I think we were all anticipating that this could be a topsy-turvy draft. But it seems like things went the way that most people expected at this point. Caitlin Clark going number 1 to the Fever. The Sparks picking up Cameron Brink at number 2, Rickea Jackson at number 4, and then Kamilla Cardoso going at number 3 to the Sky. Was this what you expected to see, or was there any part of your mind that thought that picks could switch or that somebody could go higher, say, Angel Reese or somebody like that?
About a month ago, I probably would have been a little bit surprised by this. I would have thought Rickea Jackson was going 3rd, but what Kamilla Cardoso did in that NCAA tournament, and then what we've just been seeing all the different reports and things like that over the last few weeks, it was a lot less surprising to me at this point that she went 3rd. I think you couldn't really go wrong with either one. And I was, listening to you earlier, I think I agree that I probably would have taken Rickea, but I don't think it's obvious at all. And it's really, it just depends on the upside that you see. So like people have been saying, you can't teach 6'7". So no, I haven't really been surprised yet. I think we will be coming up. It's usually, I feel like the middle of the first round is where you start to get those picks where we go, wow, like no one had that in their mock draft. And who knows if that's pick 5, 6, 7. At some point we're going to be surprised, but I don't think we've had any extreme shockers yet.
And that's interesting because I remember the Sky picking up Shyla Heal and then flipping her for Dana Evans almost immediately, drafting Natasha Mack. This is one of the deepest drafts that I've seen in a long time. And we're through the lottery, which in case anybody doesn't watch as much, it's a 12-team league, so we're through the lottery now. But I feel like there's so much value going even into the Sky's first pick of the second round. When we're talking about the back half of this first round of the draft, or the back, I guess, 2/3, how do these picks make sense lining up to you? Like, who goes 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th?
Yeah, I think we're going to see Aaliyah Edwards come off the board pretty soon. I think we're going to see J.C. Sheldon come off the board pretty soon. I know the Wings are next up, and they love to draft bigs, but they have so many bigs already. So if I had to guess, I would say that J.C. Sheldon is going there. We'll find out here in probably about a minute or so. And then obviously Angel Reese, Alyssa Peely, a couple names that you're looking at probably coming off the board pretty soon here, mid to late first round. And then you start to get into some of these international prospects that I'm honestly not as familiar with. You start to get into players like Charisma Osborne, Deasia Fair, Nika Mule, more of the backcourt. We've talked about how it's really a deep draft in terms of the front court. Of course, Caitlin Clark being the exception at the top in the backcourt. But when you get to the later first round and start to get to that early second round where the Sky have their 3rd pick, I think you are going to start to see a lot of backcourt prospects come off the board.
Going back to Kamilla Cardoso, because you said early on that her tournament play really elevated her to this spot to be picked number 3. We were able to see the tournament, and I talked about how good South Carolina was at just going defensively 5 deep, where their 5 could pressure in the backcourt, pressure in the midcourt, and just like take 10 or 15 seconds off the shot clock. But what was it about that month of play, those 3 weeks of play really, that elevated Cardoso up this far? And then how does that play translate into the league?
Yeah, I think she showed everyone that, hey, I'm not just someone who's 6'7" and quote, just big. She can move, she can get out and hedge. She can, if she has to switch, she can do that. Obviously, she's not going to be just locking down a point guard or anything because she's 6'7". But when you have all the things that come with being 6'7" in terms of the finishing ability, her ability to rebound on both ends, to post up and seal deep, get that deep position, while at the same time being mobile enough to not really be a liability, and if anything, a plus in terms of ball screen defense and things of that nature. It's really, the sky's the limit. It's so, I think Mark used that pun earlier, but it's so intriguing to see what she'll be able to do in the league when she has this size, and also just the mobility that she has at that size.
Now, in terms of Rickea Jackson, we talked endlessly about her motor, her handle, those skills, but I think I'm going to keep following her because I was very high on her before the draft, and I really thought up to the moment that the Sky drafted Kamilla Cardoso that Rickea Jackson was the right pick there. With the way that the Sky are, who they're trying to replace in terms of Kahleah Copper, as J.C. Sheldon called it, Calvin, going to the Dallas Wings at the number 5 pick. Where the Sky are in terms of losing Kahleah Copper, and even Morgan Birch, and then Courtney Williams and Alana Smith to Minnesota, do you think that Rickea would have been the better pick in terms of replacing that offense, or with Teresa Weatherspoon's orientation towards defense, will Kamilla Cardoso be able to make up for that in terms of limiting other teams offensively?
Yeah, like I said, I probably would have leaned towards taking Rickea. I do think Rickea has a little bit of a higher ceiling, and they both have incredibly high ceilings. But I also think that I'm not usually one to say, you should go based on positional need or skill set need or anything like that this high in the draft. I think you go with best player available, and obviously the Sky thought that Kamilla Cardoso is the best player available. But I do think when it's close, and these two are very close, if it's not obvious, that you can start to look up, the makeup of your roster and take that into account. And when you look at the makeup of this roster, you have Izzy Harrison coming back from that injury. You have Bree Turner, who they got in that trade from Phoenix. You have Elizabeth Williams. You have a lot of defensive bigs in this front court, and none of those players are signed past this year. So that's probably where my argument sort of falls apart, and where they ended up going with Kamilla Cardoso is that, okay, we have all these defensive front court players, but none of them are going to be the future. And Cardoso is the future of this front court. In terms of the makeup of this roster right now, I do think Rickea Jackson may have been able to help a little bit more just right away. But Kamilla Cardoso, like we said, has a lot of potential, and definitely once some of those players come off the books, because the Sky have almost no one under contract for 2025, really will be an integral piece of this team.
We got another guest coming in right now. Local product, Danny Barlavi, been working in the space for years and years and years. Check out their work with Winsider especially. Danny, we're going to get you on here in just a minute, but Calvin and Danny, we're going to go 3 wide. Welcome, Danny, welcome to the show. Oh, Barlavi. You can put an extra N in there. Like Steve Lavin, that's a throwback name. I don't know why I just said that. Nobody's going to know who that is.
How's it going,
Steve
y'all?
Lavin.
Good to be here.
Danny, what's going on with you? We were just talking about the Sky's picks, going with Kamilla Cardoso versus Rickea Jackson, and in terms of just replacing the offense that they lost with Courtney Williams, Alana Smith, and especially Kahleah Copper in the trade with Phoenix. But Danny, from your perspective, I like to talk about like face of the franchise. Does Kamilla Cardoso fill that role coming to the team? Does it go to somebody like Dana Evans, who's been a fan favorite for a long time? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was going to bring up Dana in terms of that offensive production question too. I think that, we talked a lot about, y'all talked a lot about, I should say, Teaspoon prioritizing defense with this pick with Cardoso. And I think that's because she's betting on growth from within by Dana and by Marina Mabry as well, who, she's in her prime. She's continuing to improve every year. So, yeah, I think that with that backcourt in place, you kind of feel okay going with a little bit more of a defense-heavy pick in Kamilla. That, I definitely could have seen the advantage of putting Rickea Jackson in there and kind of having three players that can really ball out offensively out there at a time. But yeah, we have that seventh pick. Have a feeling that Sky have someone specific in mind with that, given that they traded to move up one spot. Yeah, we'll see offensively what I believe it'll be Angel Reese brings in the next couple of years as she grows. Yeah, and there's Leah Edwards and the Mystics.
Yeah, Leah Edwards going to the Mystics. That's like a wealth of riches in the front court now, with Aaliyah Edwards and Shakira Austin alone.
Yeah,
And I know they're not getting Elena. I think they're not getting Elena Della Dunn this season, right? She's sitting the season out. So you have two young talents that are able to develop, and that was the best handshake. That was one of the best handshakes I've ever seen. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was sick.
I really liked Aaliyah Edwards, and I'm not a UConn guy. That's really Gino's fault. But I like what Aaliyah Edwards brings to the table in terms of her size, her athleticism, her offensive ability, and her ability to play defense. She could have fit into that South Carolina team like glue. That's how good of a defender she is, and I think that she had more offensive prowess than Fagan and the rest of their front court along with Cardoso. So solid pickup for Washington. And now once again the Sky are on the clock. And Danny, you alluded to it. The Sky moved up that one spot in the draft, and it feels like they have somebody in mind. Our comment section has been going wild all night, saying that they wanted Cardoso and Reese. Some wanted Jackson and Reese, but I think the consensus with the team, talking about the Sky fans, is that they really want Angel Reese. Montana Shy, you have to grab Angel Reese. Ken Boggs, Reese is available. And
you talk about what we lost in Kalia Copper off the court in terms of a personality, and God, I don't know if there's a better personality in this draft than Angel Reese. We talk about needing a face of the franchise, and I do think Angel is a little bit rough around the edges with a couple of her. She has to work on her post move, she has to work on her shooting, but her energy, both on the court and off, her engine and her personality. I mean, those are two things that you can't teach. And I think she's going to be the most clipped player in pressers in the next couple of years for the Sky for sure.
Calvin, over your time watching ball, and I know you've broken down a ton of things for her hoop stats just on players in the Power Five, outside the Power Five. How have you seen Angel Reese's game develop, and what do you think that trajectory looks like, as she moves to the next level?
Yeah, I think one thing we've definitely seen her improve on, especially since her time at Maryland, is her handle and her ability to take people off the bounce at 6'3". Like Danny said, she still needs to work on that shot, but I do think that that's something that we're going to see coming. I think Danny and I were talking about this the other day. You can look down the list of a lot of WNBA players currently who are in year 7, year 8, who we consider as shooters, who really were not at all shooters in their first or second year in the league. And when you have the profile of someone like Angel Reese, and we saw that video the other day in practice, just knocking down shots. When you're at that point, and when you obviously can hit free throws the way she does, I think that the 3-point shot is only a matter of time. I don't know if we'll see it this year, but I think it's coming, and that'll open things up even more for her to be able to display that handle. Obviously, we know what she can do on defense and rebounding, and that's going to translate right away, especially the rebounding. The offensive skill set is going to take a little bit more time, but I definitely think it's there. And once she sort of gets used to the level of play in the league, that I think we could see her be a pretty dangerous player on that side of the floor as well.
This is a testament to how much women's basketball has really made its way forward, because now we have
We got a Shams bomb.
Yep, we got reporters spoiling the draft. That's how you know you've made it. Sham Sharania reporting that the Sky take Angel Reese at number 7, and it made its way into the chat that quick. Man, I want to see.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, talking about Angel's profile. I mean, for the 7th pick in the WNBA draft to get a Shams tweet, that's amazing. You know, you could talk about Shams and Waj kind of coming in and swooping in and stealing breaking news, but I mean, just it's super exciting for Chicago to have 2 notable players like Kamilla and Angel coming in. And God, I can't speak enough about an Angel as a media figure.
Yeah. I talked endlessly about that Amazon commercial that she did with Flau'jae Johnson. I loved that because I'm 35 now, but I still feel like the back to school vibes when it gets to August, and that whole like outfitting your dorm room ad that they did was classic. It was great. And it spoke to not just her profile, but also Flau'jae's. And I think that Angel is somebody that you can really build around in terms of marketing and PR. Yeah, you could tell this was spoiled. Kathy looked like she was gritting her teeth so hard just now. Oh, my God. Oh, but Angel Reese officially
Let's go.
A member of the CHGO Sky, number 7.
Put a ring on it, baby.
Our man Sean Anderson in the background loving it. The Angel
got that fit, by the way.
Yeah, Angel got that Bennett Gesserit fit right there.
Yeah, that Dune swag.
You know, that would be a good question to ask at Media Day. Angel, did you see Dune? What did you think? Do you think that Paul Atreides is really a right-wing icon like so many people have said for some reason? No, this is...
Ooh, 24. Oh, wait, that's just the year it is. I always forget that they just put the year of the draft on the jersey.
John Hosey, the Sky team is going to be mean. You know, I like that. I think that's a perfect way to characterize it. You know, it's going to be a mean team. Calvin, I gotta get your thoughts, because I think I would have been happy saying Rickea Jackson, and I want to see what happens at number 13, but I would have been cool picking Alyssa Pilley at 8. When they had the 8th pick at number 8, but just overall, what are your thoughts on how these 2 players fit into the makeup of what Teresa Weatherspoon, Jeff Pagliocca are trying to build?
Yeah, I think it's huge, especially on the defensive end. We keep talking about how Teaspoon is going to be a defensive coach. And like we said, once they lose some of these other veteran bigs, which, by the way, having this year to play with these veteran bigs, and who knows if they bring any of them back. But Angel and Cardoso coming in and being able to learn from someone like Bree Turner, who's one of the better defenders across the league, whether it's for a year, 2 years, however long, and develop and then grow to be what could be an elite defensive backcourt in a few years as the starting, or front court, I should say, as the starting front court for the Sky. I think it fits in perfectly with that vision that they're trying to execute in terms of turning this into a defensive team. And now you can really shift your focus to the backcourt, like we said, with this next pick around the turn of the first and second round, because you have your front court and your defense very well solidified.
I agree with that. Danny, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, absolutely agree that this is the front court of the future for the Sky. We're going to see these 2 starting next to each other for a very long time. They're bringing that SEC toughness. They're bringing that grit. I really do believe that they're both going to get their offensive game a little bit more sorted out in the next couple of years. And the Sky shouldn't be looking to make any waves right away anyway. We won a championship a couple of years ago. We're a firm rebuilding team. These are 2 great pickups. I do think we see Angel shooting in the next couple of years, as Calvin alluded to earlier, from outside the arc. I think Cardoso, we've seen pops of her having a little bit more than she's shown in college in terms of shooting, most notably against Tennessee in the tournament, the conference tournament, that is. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited to see where we go with 13. I would love to see a player like Nika Moule if she ends up dropping to the second somehow. Layla Lacan from France also is a super underrated prospect in this draft. I don't know if this guy would have her next year, but super crafty passer.
I got some interesting thoughts about how they build around these two players. But very quick, let's take a moment to thank Circa Sportsbook for sponsoring our show tonight. Tight money line splits and a low hold model, which let's go over that very quick. Games will strive to be a minus 110 split. Now, if you're not a sports bettor, if you're not a sports betting fan, that minus 110 means that the favorite, if you put up $110, you get back 100, which is about the best bet you can make outside of going for a favorite, a plus bet. And you're not going to get any wide swings from Circa Sportsbook as well. They keep as little money as possible on large market bets compared to other sports books, and they have a lot of transparency. Plus, customer service is the name of the game. There's a real person behind the Circa Sports brand who will resolve issues in a timely fashion, unlike other sports books where you've got to go through, one AI person, one answering machine. I used to work customer service, so I know what this is like. But that's something that I absolutely look for, not just when I'm doing any sports betting, but in any business I do business with. So download the Circa Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app. That's www.circasports.com/Illinois-app to sign up today. And also be on the lookout for Circa events, watch parties, and tailgates. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. Text GAMB to 833-234 or visit areyoureallywinning.com. And also, we want to thank Prize Picks. Calvin, I know you know it.
Wait, hold on. It's CDJR, I believe.
Oh, that's CDJR for this
yes,
one?
Sir.
Is that,
CDJR.
is that Chevy Ray? Is that Ray Chevy?
Well, it's Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram.
If you're in the market for a new vehicle, which I hope that neither of you have that trouble, but if you are in the market for a new vehicle, you want to check out Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram in Fox Lake as they're celebrating the Jeep Celebration event all April long, and you know what that means. You'll be able to rave about their savings on a wide selection of inventory for a limited time only. Lease a new 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo Altitude for $439 a month for 39 months. And if that Grand Cherokee isn't big enough for you, check out the third row and lease a new 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited L for $479 a month for 39 months. But that's not all. Just for listening to this ad, which I know you love doing, you can get a free oil change when you mention CHGO at the service center or mention CHGO when you book online at raycdjr/service. But you have to do all this before April 30th. It's April 15th. It's tax day, so you have 15 days left. Go to raycdjr/service. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, then you have to check out the team at Ray Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram all the way up north in Fox Lake on Route 12. For more information, visit Ray CDJR in Fox Lake or raycdjr.com, serving the community since 1963.
Fine. Well, that's
no. You're right. You're right. We'll get that rhythm right.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
The 1-2 combination is.
I know we're here only once every couple weeks. I'm a little
for real, man.
I know.
Danny, I want to get up with you on what we talked about. I think off stream here, but Mark mentioned it. I've talked about it, and you made a point about the Sky having that championship and giving players time to develop. I was kind of the mind that social capital is a bit low after the championship, considering that the big names have left town. I'm sorry, I got completely distracted because the Minnesota Lynx just picked Alyssa Pili, and I am devastated.
Oh, damn.
I am absolutely devastated. Where's that Minnesota soundbite that I used like a month ago? Do we have that?
Which one? The
Minnesota!
I don't think that's in here anymore. Could be.
Oh, my God. Well, we're going to have to make it because I can't believe that just happened. Putting that aside, Danny, I honestly am interested because, like I said, I thought that the social capital was a bit low after the championship run and after losing so many top-quality players. But why is that? Why will the fans be cool having those two players, having Cardoso and Reese, and giving them time to develop?
Yeah, I think that to speak to the social capital element of it a bit, that's an interesting word to use. I like that. I feel like having these two big names from college, and college women's basketball is really bringing the ratings. I think that bridges the gap a lot in terms of having just like these players that fans are used to seeing in commercials, on TV, and interviews all over TikTok. Definitely more so with Angel, just in terms of how she's made herself a brand. But I definitely think that Kamilla's name recognition comes in from just playing for a team with a fandom like South Carolina. So we get some of that energy, some of that South Carolina Gamecocks fan energy, and that's super positive and just overwhelming. If she can bring some South Carolina fans with her, that's a huge boon to the fandom.
That's a good point there too, Calvin. How do you see that developing? Because I think with the way that the league is trying to expand and grow, bringing fans in is so much a part of who you put on the floor, and not just can they win, like who's following them. Because following college and just seeing the game grow, fans aren't following teams necessarily as much as they follow players, especially with the way the transfer portal I think works. So how do you see that translating in the W with the fan base that Cardoso and Reese can bring?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right that people follow players a lot more than teams, which is why we saw, Caitlin Clark has a bigger following than South Carolina, even though South Carolina was a better team start to finish, and we all know that. But South Carolina didn't have that one singular star. They were so deep. And so because of that, it's really important for the Sky to start to market these young players right away and get the whole community and the whole city of Chicago to sort of get to know these players. And I think Angel Reese, even though Angel Reese was picked second among these two, she has higher name recognition between these two. So you can start there. I think there's a lot of fans who.
Uh-oh, Calvin. Where'd Calvin go?
We froze Calvin. Oh no.
We froze him out.
So hopefully you can bring some of those. You can.
We lost you for
Am I
a
back?
quick
Am I
second.
back?
Yeah, we got you back.
I'm not sure where I cut out, but I
Keep
was
it going, man.
I was just saying that Angel Reese has some fans who aren't necessarily LSU fans. They're Angel Reese fans, and so you start by bringing in those Angel Reese fans because of the personality that she has, and she's such a fun character to just follow basketball-wise. Start by bringing those in, and then we've seen how the South Carolina fans have followed Asia Wilson to the W and become Aces fans, and they last year started to follow Ilya Boston to the W and become Fever fans to some extent. So if you're the Chicago Sky, you need to start to channel that, and not that Kamilla Cardoso is ever going to have the same what, as you say, social capital and marketability as someone like Asia Wilson. But if you can even get a fraction of that what the Aces have gotten and get some of those South Carolina fans, like Danny said, to their point, then you really have a great place to start in terms of building a fan base around those two players, not just basketball wise, but following those two players and watching them develop as they really become the faces of this franchise, which they probably will be within the next few years.
We got some really good comments in the chat. The Giggity saying both these ladies have won championships. The Sky need that winning pedigree. Calvin, how important is that? How important is that to bring that winning pedigree from college to the pros, do you think?
I think it's huge. I think there's something really intangible about knowing how to win and knowing what it takes, especially at the end of close games. And just having been in high pressure situations before, both of these championships that they won were watched by way more people than have been watching WNBA games the last few years. And we'll see if that changes as WNBA ratings continue to grow. But both of them have already played on a stage as big or bigger than what they're going to be playing on now in the WNBA, which isn't always the case across sports when you go from college to pro. Sometimes it's the biggest stage you've ever been on. But for these two, that's not going to be the case. They've already been on a stage that big, and they know how to handle it, not just on the court, but when it comes to the media and all the stuff that surrounds being on a stage that big. They've been there before. So if they are able to get the Chicago Sky back to the WNBA finals, it's something that they've done before. They've been like at this level, and they know what it takes on and off the court, and just how to handle themselves mentally, how to handle themselves physically, how to prepare for the moment. And so I think it's a really big deal.
Danny, I saw one comment in the chat earlier that said we're about to win a championship, which I'm happy for. I'm happy for that excitement. I think it might be a little early, but
Love the energy.
right? You got to love that.
Yeah.
But Pokemon Prophet said Bedard, Kamilla, Reese, and Caleb Williams, Chicago Sports is back. And then Trey Shy, Dana Evans, Marina Mabry. Sorry, I lost it for a second. There we go. Williams, Reese, talking about Elizabeth Williams, Reese, Cardoso with T-Dub as head coach. We about to be a problem. Give me your take right now. What's your outlook on the season? I know you said that the Sky are in a rebuilding year with the 2 super teams still on the coasts. Where do you see the Sky? How do they look in terms of record and how they look in terms of cohesion?
I love the structure of the team that's being built here. You know, we've talked about a strong defensive identity. We've talked about this tough front court identity that they're going to latch around in a couple of years. You know, in a couple of years, I think that's going to be really great. I think that right now you have a core you're looking at in terms of Mabry, Dana, Angel, and Kamilla that is super high potential. Marina is going to be entering her prime in the next couple of years. Maybe we're 2 or 3 years away and a couple of free agency picks away from serious contention again. But that's a good place to be as a franchise right now. You know, no one's winning the championship but the Aces or Liberty for the next couple of years. And I think that it's going to be the Aces for the next couple of years, personally. So I think that being a rebuilding franchise right now, when even if we were competing, it would be for probably, you know, a semifinal appearance at best. I'm happy with where the Sky are right now. I think it's the right place to be. You zag when everyone else zigs. And yeah, you know, I think we have a new coach in terms of that too. And I think it's going to be really good for Teaspoon to grow alongside these players as a coach. Yeah, no, I think that we're going to play a lot of teams closer than they want us to.
Okay.
And if we want to talk about gambling, I think we're going to cover some spreads. Absolutely. I think we're going
on
to mix
Circa,
it up.
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
on Circa Sports, Illinois.
Danny,
yeah,
you
I don't know.
You know, Connecticut Sun people are watching this right now, and they clipped that of you saying that nobody's winning the championship in New York or Las Vegas.
Window's closing for them.
They got the disrespect hashtag ready.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's just trying to get in one of those social media videos.
Oh, yeah.
See,
No,
Danny.
I want to be in one of those. Shout out to whoever makes those. They're great. They're so hype.
We had John Hosey earlier say that this is the most excitement he's seen on Twitter for a WNBA draft, and I can't
Love that.
disagree. And I think, Caitlin Clark was a big part of that, but I think that just judging on the reaction that we saw for so many people who are watching this about Angel Reese, shout out to French Bulls TV, 2 French players drafted in a row, Carla Lete and Layla Lakin. But I think it's true. I think we're seeing maybe not an all-time high for women's basketball around the world, but in terms of the draft, this is the most chatter I've seen.
I mean, I'll say this. I have a friend group that, like, we text about sports all the time, but only this season is kind of when it started at women's hoops kind of got into the conversation. And one of my guys this morning, he was like, I was looking at the mock draft. He's like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I was looking at the WNBA mock draft. And so I was like, yes, we are here. This is it's a whole new world.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait until people get annoying in group chats about mock drafts like 6 months ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like, that's when you know you've really made it in sports. I appreciate both y'all coming on tonight. I think my one last thing is just in terms of what's the most important game on the schedule now for the Sky? Like, what's the must-see one? Because we've talked about the Fever and how the ticket prices jumped up when it was consensus Caitlin Clark. I said that Rickea Jackson might have that chip on her shoulder for, the Sky were supposed to draft me, and then they didn't, and she goes to Los Angeles. So I think the Sky open against the Sparks at home in their home opener, I believe. So where do you see that first must-see game being? Is it Fever? Is it Sparks? Is it Minnesota? What's the one that you were like, yeah, you got to go see this one?
Yeah, I do think it's the Fever. I think the Sparks are probably the most beatable team, in that it's good that the Sky can open with them at home and maybe get a win and build some confidence. But in terms of if you're a neutral fan out there, just must see TV in basketball, it's the Fever, not only because they have Caitlin Clark, obviously, but they are going to be so different with what they can do, putting her with Aaliyah Boston. And in terms of storylines, you have the last two national championships that whoever it was in the comments brought up, Kamilla Cardoso and Angel Reese, won both of those. They both beat Caitlin Clark in those championships. So now you have those rivalries that are starting to develop and those storylines that come with that extending into the W. So I definitely, it's the easy answer, but I do think it's the Fever.
You got to mention with that too, Kamilla Cardoso guarding Leah Boston.
True.
Yes.
That's so fun. I think that even more than anything with Caitlin, obviously Caitlin's always a good time. I lose my mind every time I get to see her in person. Absolutely. And I'm excited to. But that post matchup, two consecutive all-time South Carolina teams. Obviously they're also friends in a lot of ways. Aaliyah is kind of, I'm sure, like a mentor, older sister figure to Kamilla. They're just gonna have a good time with it too. I also want to see this new. We talk about this tough front court, and this is one that I'll have fun with. But I don't know if the Sky are making it a close game. Whenever the Aces come to town, I'm excited to see Angel and Kamilla stack up against the best front court in professional basketball. I'm excited to see them put to the test like that. I think it will be fun.
I love that. The best front court in professional basketball, you said. That was straight up.
Period.
That was straight up. Coincidentally, the Sky play the Fever June 26th when the tickets are costing as much as a mortgage payment for like a 2-bedroom house. And then the Aces come to town right after that. So if you have the money and the time available.
Camilla's going to be tired.
Oh, for real? God.
Yeah.
Because that Indiana Fever team, you got Aaliyah Boston, you got Caitlin Clark, you still got Grace Berger, who I really like, and I never like Indiana players. But you got Grace Berger on that team, who I think is developing really well, and then you got the Fever right after that. It's going to be trial by fire this season for Kamilla Cardoso for sure. But I do think she's her toughness is well worth it.
So physically strong too, so athletic, like really WNBA ready body in so many ways.
I like that, Danny, because that's kind of where my concern lay. I know the height was there, and I knew she had strength playing in the conference that she did, but I didn't know how she would stack up against those players who have been in the league for a while. In terms of, I thought she was a little on the thin side, and she would take some time to really build up that strength. So you're saying that she's good there?
There's a certain incident I don't want to bring up right now, but
I mean, that's punching power is a different kind of strength.
Whole different thing. No, but yeah, I mean, I think that I brought up SEC toughness before. That there's a reason we keep seeing teams or players come out of the SEC and be so ready. You look at Shakira Austin, you look at Aaliyah Boston. They're tough. They play a really physical brand of basketball. That's, I think, one of the hardest things about adjusting to professional basketball at any level is, the level of strength of the competition and also speed. That's more my concern with Kamilla is, if she's going to be, outpaced in the W at times.
Danny, I want to keep you on for a little bit more time, so we can get you on with Steven once he gets back with us. So Calvin Wetzel, I appreciate you coming in with us, man. Follow Calvin on Twitter at CWetzel. That's CWETZEL 31 on Twitter. And check out her hoop stats for the best in women's basketball stats across the NCAA and the WNBA. Calvin, once again, thank you for coming. Thank you for showing your Sky pride. And, you know, at some point I really do. I want to get down for the I-74 game with you and Steven. That would be real cool.
Hey, we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. I appreciate you having me on. This was fun. And go Redbirds.
Thanks,
Yeah, go
man.
Birds.
Oh, for real?
No, I went to Northwestern, but I have love for Cal.
Oh gosh, I applied for Northwestern grad school too. I'm still waiting to hear back, but
Fingers crossed.
no, for sure that would be great. That would be great, honestly. I don't know if there's a like if your allegiance lies more to your undergrad or to your graduate program, because I know there's one person in Chicago sports specifically that he's not with us, so I don't want to drop the names. But once he went to Alabama, he was all Crimson Tide all the time, to a point where I was like, "Bro, you were in your 40s."
Yeah, and you didn't even go there. You like telecommuted, or
Right?
whatever. Yeah. I don't think he stepped foot in Tuscaloosa.
On campus is very funny for that. Just telecommuting, but being super rowdy about it.
No, seriously, I thought he at least spent some time in Tuscaloosa. I didn't know that he was just taking classes from home. That's crazy.
Northwestern football is on the up. I see that in the chat.
Dude, if I get that spot, I will tell you. I am going to Northwestern basketball games. I'm old enough to remember the Dice Stadium curse.
Yeah, Dyke Stadium, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't truck with curses. I don't deal with that.
Yeah.
It's a name. It's a name.
No, man, you can't. They said if you change the name, they're not going to win, and they haven't been winning.
Okay.
It's a curse. It's real.
All right.
I'm like Ken Hotate off Parks and Rec. One thing that
Nice.
Yeah, you like that reference?
Love
yeah,
Parks
like
and Rec.
people.
Let's go.
People know that people do not like curses.
You want to bring Steven back in here?
Yeah, we got Stephen Garner coming back to us live from Sky HQ. Danny,
Got to make sure the Illinois State representation is
no,
always
yeah,
on screen.
we got more. We have to have one Illinois State person on the telecast at all times. That is in our bylaws. Stephen, what's going on down there, man?
Well, I think I came in at the right time. Y'all was talking about the Redbirds, so needless to say, let's have the person that probably went there most recently go ahead and tap in. So I was glad to hear that. But no, I mean, how about this bomb that this guy just dropped on us? Not just Cardoso, but also Angel Reese. I mean, obviously you want to evaluate on the court and how things are going to fit, but I think the engagement level that it brings from fans and generating more interest than you already had in your team in terms of turning a corner and transitioning into a new era, you check those boxes off in a resounding fashion. With these two players, the fan bases that they have trickling from them just individually, but also from their respective schools as well, that's something that I think any team in the W is looking to add to everything that they already have in-house. Getting one of those blue blood type of college teams, one of the best players, if not the best player from those respective teams, in-house in their franchise and to integrate into their culture. And I think these are two massive back-to-back home runs for this guy, looking at it from that lens. I'm very intrigued to see how these two look on the court together. I think for me, just looking at it from the basketball perspective, Angel's already been in the gym working with Chris Brickley, one of the most renowned NBA trainers, and one of the best known for just general skill development. And I think maybe the biggest thing that we saw from those sessions that she's posted and that he's posted is that she's already working on adding spacing and adding shooting. And those two things are not the exact same, spacing and shooting, but they can kind of be intertwined with one another. And I think if she can provide both of those things, I think the Sky have something that they can build foundation-wise going forward as just a general kind of two-headed franchise player type of tandem. And I think on the defensive side, though, those two are going to shine in abundance with each other. The versatility that Angel brings, the IQ, the heart, the hustle, everything that we talked about before I left prior to the third pick. And then obviously with Kamilla being a foundational piece and rim anchoring and being able to run the floor and just all of the little things that she does. And there's a lot of leadership that comes with those two. So, yeah, home run from both of those picks, and together it's a grand slam. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the 13th pick as well.
I like that, man. My man, he's a a basketball player and a football player, and he went with the baseball metaphor. That was dope. Danny, I apologize. Go ahead.
No, I apologize. I was about to say, I think we're about to get another home run, probably the steal of the draft so far. I think that it's wild that Kamilla is available at 13. We talk about building a gritty defensive identity team. That's one of the best wing defenders, one of the best guard defenders we have, and she's a great passer, great shooter when she needs to be too. Not a very high volume scorer, obviously in college, but I really hope we take Nika here. That's a great fit.
Yeah, the Giggity saying Nika still being available is wild. The Sky can get a steal. That's Nika Mule from Connecticut. And the Sky are on the clock as Niadiu Puak went to Atlanta with the 12th pick, finishing out the first round. So the Sky on the clock for the first pick of the second round. And Danny, I know we did have Region Rev, our longtime listener, saying that they had some smoke for you, saying that you didn't think the Sky could contend. Nothing is changing her mind, and no disrespect. Go for it. Yeah.
No, I live here. I want to see it. I want to see us make the playoffs. It's just, as an analyst, I don't see it, but I'm all rooting for the Sky.
I mean, that's I think a sign of good fandom is disagreeing with the people who cover the team. That just means that people are interested in the team, right?
Yeah. No, yeah. I obviously I want to see the best things this year. But I think winning 16 games would be impressive to me.
I'm kind of in the same boat there. So, Danny, I appreciate you coming on. Definitely, thank you for giving us your perspective. Follow Danny on Twitter at DBL Fluidity. That's DBL Fluidity. I'm slightly embarrassed to say that I thought that it was double and not your initials until I said it out loud just now. So. Thank you for coming on and making me realize that. That was good. Double fluidity? Okay. I like that.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
But Danny, much appreciate you coming on. Follow Danny's work online and at Winsider. Danny, appreciate you having on the show. Looking forward to seeing you out at Wintrust. Stephen, we're back here. We're going to bring on our final guest of the evening in just a moment. Did it fill up? Did they get the 150 they thought they were going to get out there?
It definitely felt like it, and I'm not sure if Lawrence produced a video for everybody to see.
I don't have it ready yet. I've been doing a bunch of things. Yeah. But yeah, I know you sent that in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it felt like obviously when people are all screaming in unison, you can feel it, and it definitely felt like it was at 150 plus. So yeah, everybody was engaged. I heard a whole lot of kind of like background conversations. This season's gonna be so much fun. I'm looking forward to coming to games, like all of these little things like that. Nice. So yeah, it was very refreshing to hear, kind of piggybacking or really just kind of springing forward from everything that transpired in the early parts of free agency. So yeah, they've turned multiple corners in today.
Very nice. Let's bring in our third guest of the evening. She's been waiting very patiently, and we very much appreciate that. Callie Lawson-Freeman joining the show. Callie Lawson-Freeman of Yahoo Sports. And Callie, we've got to break this news first because Steven let me know that you got a promotion before coming on the show.
Go.
So we got to talk about that if we can.
Big time. Oh. Big time.
Can you guys hear me okay?
We got you, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, I'm starting a new job somewhere else. So, yeah, it's going to be...
My intro was wrong.
Yeah, well, no, it's okay. It's okay. But I'm starting a new job. It's a promotion in the sense that I'll get to cover the WNBA as a much larger part of my job. At Yahoo, I'm a breaking and trading news writer. So all of the women's basketball and just women's sports coverage I was doing was kind of like a side hustle. But it'll be a huge part of my job now. So I'll go into that news more probably tomorrow, because tomorrow is my last day at Yahoo. And then I'll give the tea. But I wanted to give a hint, which is that I'll be covering the best team in the WNBA. So
she's here to cover the Sky. Let's go.
Chicago. Hey, we're going to have Callie out here. You got to go to Herald's. You got to go to Herald's first.
Let's think about that. Let's think about that. The best team in the WNBA.
Let us have it for a moment. Come on.
Chicago, we stump for all of our teams, no matter how annoying they are. And I'm not talking about the Sky. I'm talking about a certain football team. So you gotta respect the fact that we were going to say that.
Well, no, you got the right one. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm a Bears fan. Like, I'm a big Bears fan. I used to tweet about the Bears a lot. I don't do it anymore because my morale has kind of, it's like nosedived a little bit. But yeah, most people who've been following me for a long time, they know I'm a Bears fan. So that's kind of funny.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay. Yeah. Before we get into anything else, then, what do you think about Caleb Williams?
I'm intrigued. I was kind of hurt. I really wanted to see Justin Fields' career go differently than it did. Like, I had such high hopes for him, but I see the excitement around Caleb. I mean, seeing him at Southern California, like, he kind of reminds me of like a Patrick Mahomes, which I know that comparison is really popular, but I'm excited. I am. It's just I gotta like move on from the emotional part of being like, bye, Justin.
I know how you feel. You are legitimately every Black Bears fan in Chicago with that, because that is the feeling throughout the city. Like, Justin just, I don't want to go into it anymore. So many people sitting in these chairs right here have talked about that for the last 5 months. So I don't want
8, 10, 12 months.
2 years.
Exactly.
It's been, what did she say, Titanic? It's been years.
We can probably talk about it forever. I mean, it's crazy. Like, the role of the quarterback in the NFL, it can go south so quickly. And then you look at these really accomplished quarterbacks, and you just have to think, obviously they're talented, but so many things have to go right for them to have the careers that they're having. And Justin Fields just isn't really having that experience. So.
Well, Callie, I appreciate you coming on, because the Sky just put in their first pick of the second round, picking up Brenna Maxwell from Gonzaga, which is, I think, the first surprise that we found for the evening. Nika Mule was listed on ESPN's best available, and I think pretty much everybody in the comment section was thinking that they were looking at Nika Mule since she dropped to the second round, but the Sky going with a surprise here, picking up Brenna Maxwell. So just going over those 3 picks in themselves. Cardoso at 3, Angel Reese at 7, and Maxwell at 13. We've talked to guests throughout the night about where they feel like the Sky is setting up this season and down the road. How do you feel like those top 2 picks and the first pick of the second round set them up, either this year and going forward into the future?
Yeah, I mean, I love that you mentioned the future, because my immediate thought was surprise when they picked Kamilla. I thought they were going to pick Rickea, but I think the choice to pick Kamilla, and then they traded up to be in the position to select Reese, and I think that was really smart, because they both have so much upside, and the Sky just got so much bigger, literally. Like, obviously in size on the court, but the intrigue, the excitement that both of those players are going to bring it's going to matter. And like, I think what Kamilla and Reese both have in common is that they've played for really, like, coaches. Like, we know about these coaches. We know their personalities well. Like, we know these coaches. We know Don Staley. We know Kim Mulkey. We also know Teaspoon. You know what I'm saying? And like, I think it's really cool that that's going to be their continued trajectory, playing for really accomplished and respected coaches. And I think they can only go up from that point. So if I'm a Sky fan, I'm super hyped right now. I'm really surprised they didn't pick Nika. I mean, I'm talking to you guys. I have the draft on right here. So like, I missed that pick, but I thought for sure they were going to pick Nika Mule. And so, because that would have been a crazy defensive team. And Teaspoon is all about defense. So I'm really surprised that they passed on her.
Yeah, the Giggity's here saying the Sky do need a stretch post player so they can understand why they picked Brenna Maxwell. Just think Nika, even as a guard, is the better player long term. Steven, how was the mood after the Maxwell pick?
I mean, there was definitely some surprise, but I think when you get to this point in the draft, after you hit your 2 home runs that collectively, tandemize as a grand slam, now you want to find something or someone that fits around everything that you're establishing. And I think, Chris, me and you have talked about it. There's 2 things that were a major concern for both of us in conversation on the pod, and that was shooting and spacing. Obviously, there was ambiguity because of them not knowing who they were going to actually have available to pick when their opportunities came. And then executing upon those picks the way that they did, they addressed the front court. But now It's about adding some shooting around these two foundational pieces that you've added that are more so defensive minded than they are offensively. So you look at Brenda, and I mean, for any Sky fan, I think the first thing when you decide to search her name on YouTube, you're gonna see Allie Quigley, and you're gonna see Allie Quigley again and again and again. Her movement patterns, the way she's featured in offense, moving off of screens, being able to shoot one dribble pull ups, having a surprising ability to create space off of the closeouts that she garners, being able to shoot off of screens galore, running teams ragged off of floppy action, all types of actions where she's screening off the ball and then she's kind of stealthy, not unlike Allie was, and creating space and then just floating to it and being able to get up quick trigger opportunities at the basket. I think this was a very big pick for them. I think she's a player that will surely make the actual roster past training camp. And I think she's going to be a featured piece in everything they do. And just kind of looking at these picks, obviously with Angel and Kamilla, is context and fit go out the window. You get those players whenever you're able to. But with somebody like Maxwell, I think the context of fit and opportunity couldn't be better. She's on a team that needs shooting, that needs everything that she's going to bring in movement. And I think the opportunity will be there. She's going to have somebody that she can obviously learn from in Marina Mabry that operates similarly to her. But even looking at Marina is a lot more inclined to have the ball in her hands than she is operating and moving off it. And I think that element that has really been a void that was left since Allie obviously went into free agency. I think them being able to not necessarily replace it, but address it with a player of that similar type of archetype is important. And I think she could potentially become a foundational piece around everything that Angel and Kamilla will be doing inside the arc.
Callie, I want to swing to you because I know you. I saw you had an opportunity about a year ago to talk to De'Arica Hamby of the LA Sparks, with Rickea Jackson going to them at number 4 when she was, I think, the consensus pick for the Sky as soon as maybe a month ago, as recently as maybe a month ago. How do you think that she's going to fit into that roster, after they're kind of in their own retooling or rebuilding journey, and Cameron Brink as well?
I think what you said is true. The Sparks are definitely in kind of a rebuilding space. But I really like the Sparks coach. I think that he has shown he can take a team from one point to another. I think that's one reason why De'Arica was so excited to be in Los Angeles, because she felt so comfortable with him. And so I think that's great for Rickea and also for Cameron. I feel like I keep talking about coaching, but I think in the W, it's so important to play for coaches who are you can tell that they put, relationships first. And that was something that De'Arica talked about a lot when I spoke with her. Just she got on the phone and she was, going through a lot, in that transition from Vegas to Los Angeles. And then, you have the Sparks coach, he's new at the time and he's offering all this support and everything. So I would imagine that he'll do that same for his rookies. Obviously, it's really difficult to make a WNBA roster. It's one thing to get drafted. It's another thing to make the roster and play. And so I think I think they're a great, I see the fit. I think Rickea and Cameron it reminds me kind of Kiki and Cameron, Kiki Arioffen and Cameron Brink were a really good duo. And I feel like Rickea it's almost taking that up a notch. And so I really am excited to see it. And in terms of what their roster will look like, that I'm a little bit interested to see, because, people are going to get cut. People are going to get moved around. And so that's going to be really, really interesting to watch in LA.
This is interesting, Callie, because I'm glad you mentioned what De'Arica was going through when she got to LA, because everybody knows the circumstances of that move and kind of the background behind it. And we're on draft night. We're on a Sky podcast. But it's so hard for me to not, ask you about that and the circumstances around it, because I've been trying to keep up with that De'Arica Hamby story and try to keep the discussion around it going, because what she meant to that Las Vegas team and then the circumstances of her departure publicized with her pregnancy, and then the right word is alleged here, kind of forcing out by management. Where I just want to ask you about what, if anything, what you got from Dearica about that, and what are your thoughts on that?
I think when we spoke, it was like a transitional period for her. She was like not even 2 months postpartum, and so she was committed to playing, and we saw her do that. And my question to her kind of was, what's the motivation? How do you stay motivated to do that? And she told me that initially it was revenge. Like, she wanted revenge. She wanted to show the Aces why they shouldn't have allegedly treated her the way that they did, I guess is the best way to phrase that. And so by the end of our conversation, though, it was so clear to me, and I think she expressed this as well, that it evolved from that. Like, she doesn't feel any spite anymore. Like, she is playing for herself. That was the decision. I think you could see that in some of her performances. Like, she has a lot of grit, and I respect the hell out of that. Like, there's just so much dedication that you see there. And so, yeah, in terms of like exactly where things stand with the Aces, that is something that remains to be seen. The last thing I remember reporting on was a discrimination filing that was, and then I think the circumstances around that were a little bit unclear too, kind of like what the bounds of the law were in that situation. I don't think that the Aces are too worried about that right now, to be honest with you. I think that I don't know if that's the last that we'll hear about the situation. It feels like there's still a lot that could potentially evolve, but what I know for sure is that Dearica has, like, her stance on it has changed and evolved. So I think that is important, but that doesn't mean she still doesn't want to like take her full course of options within the law, because being pregnant it's protected. There are so many, and I think that's another thing she really wanted women to know. Like, you have so many protections under the law when you are pregnant and working, because that's what this is. The WNBA is a job. It's like, this is a corporation. It's business. And so I think that that's another important thing for Dearica too. She wants people to know their rights.
Thank you for talking about that. I want people to make sure, as much as we're talking about the Sky and we're talking about the WNBA, those things are always important. So please keep following that story. Callie, thank you for reporting on it. A super chat we got in the chat from Ronetta. I am ecstatic about this draft. Got Cardoso and Reese. Let's go. Thanks for Callie joining in, and thanks for doing this show. Referring to Stephen and me. Cardoso and Reese, we got No Way as well, saying getting Reese and Cardoso is crazy. How crazy is that for both of you? Callie, first from you, is that crazy, like unfathomable? Is it that big for the team, or is there another direction that you saw them going?
Like I said, I thought Rickea was going to Chicago, but I think you really credit your GM. Like, the move to trade up to assure that you could get Angel, I understand the choice not to pass up on Kamilla. Like, I totally get it. But it's a little bit shocking to me. Even logging on to this, I was thinking like, wow, I thought we were going to be talking about Rickea and her fit in Chicago. So, but I think it's really exciting. It's just not what I expected at all.
Steven, I know we discussed it, but what are you thinking now, especially having been on the ground up there?
Yeah, I honestly, I wasn't too into the mocks just because after like the first 4 picks, it's pretty much teams just going with whatever their plan B was because their plan A got thrown off. So I don't put too much stock into the mocks, but I also didn't think it was possible that the Sky would come away with Kamilla and Angel, and I also didn't see them taking Angel at 3, so I didn't assume that they would be, really even have the chance to grab her. The fact that they did, again, like I said, it's 2 home runs back to back, which resulted in collectively like a grand slam in a sense in multiple different contexts for the organization. So I think if they had like dreamt up a perfect plan, it probably wouldn't even been this. But the fact that they had the opportunity to by way of the trade that we saw happen yesterday where they moved up 1 pick, again, like Callie said, and I was going to get to it myself, Jeff Pagliocca has to be given the loudest of rounds of applauses whenever he's seen, because he's done some Herculean type of mountain moving since he's come into position. Not necessarily undoing the things that happened prior to him, but just making better the situation for him and obviously Teresa Witherspoon to compete in. Those two are natural-born competitors, And obviously, what they wanted to do was facilitate to the team and optimize the situation the most that they possibly could to lay a foundation to build the just the general culture that they want to in this team that's now their baby that they're going to be raising up the way that they want it to be. So I think they've aligned all of that with their principles and everything that they desire to see, and they're going to hit the ground running. I think this is going to be one of the more competitive training camps across all of the W, if not the absolute most competitive training camp. So stay tuned for that. Fireworks are going to come before the season even starts.
Yeah,
When
that's
you
a good.
okay, I'm so glad you said that. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I like where you were going with that. I think you're right on track because all I was going to do was add to that.
Yeah, no, you got me so excited because I keep hearing competitor, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm having flashbacks to that LSU South Carolina game where the fight broke out because
Mm-hmm.
Kamilla
Mm-hmm.
went beast
Mm-hmm.
mode, and I'm just like, that whole game, Angel and Kamilla, from the opening tip. I talked to Aaliyah Boston about this recently, for Yahoo, and we were just talking about how that game was on 10 as soon as it started. Like, those girls are true competitors. And my favorite part about it is that you could tell Kamilla was enjoying every second of it. Like, it got really serious in the paint. Like, they're pulling hair, they're doing all types of stuff, they're talking mess. And like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall at training camp. Like, I want to be there because I know exactly what you're saying is true. It's going to be really competitive. And you made a great point about Teaspoon being a competitor. Even there was a promo that they cut after this guy's first pick, with Teaspoon just talking about like her career as a player and all this stuff. And like, I would have run through a brick wall for her. Like, you can tell that she is a
Oh,
competitor.
Steve is cracking up right now.
Yeah, so that's why I'm
Listen, Callie, listen. All you, if you ever, you will have the opportunity to engage with Teaspoon. I promise you. At first eye contact, you're gonna be on 10, and then when she finally does say hi to you, you're gonna be ready to run through that wall. That's just literally the ingratiating of each other before you even actually have a full conversation. That's just the greeting stage, and she
yeah,
already has you at that level. So needless to say, you actually get under her wing and be literally coached and mentored by her. Because I think that's the other big part. It's not just the coaching with Teresa. It's going to be the mentoring and the fact that the players know that she was one of the best to step foot and really one of the pioneers in everything that the W has become in this current rendition of it. So I think all of those things add up. I think maybe the easiest comp would be looking at how things quickly ascended from what they were prior to Becky Hammond going to the Aces and how they are now culture wise. Obviously, it's two completely different contexts, so I'm not comparing wins and losses and rosters and all of that, but just looking at the culture,
yeah,
what the Aces were and what their perception was before Becky came versus what it is even just 2 seasons removed from when she first started as the coach. I think there's going to be a stark contrast with the Sky, and it's obviously going to be a positive contrast for them. So, yeah, that's going to be fun to engage for sure.
Speaking of the Aces, talking about culture, Deaisha Fair going to the Aces with their pick in the second round, number 16. I'm glad you brought up culture. And Callie, you pretty much alluded to it already, talking about competition. But how much does that resonate with you? Just looking around the league in terms of what this Sky team can be, because we had Danny Barlavi on just before you came on, pretty much saying that 16 wins is a quality ceiling for them this season, and that for the time being, the titles are going to be decided between New York and Las Vegas. So, what do you see that culture coming to with these players and Teresa Weatherspoon?
yeah. I mean, I think this is a bad pun, but the sky is the limit in terms of
You're the third
culture.
person to
Like,
say it tonight. It's all right.
I think that we got a good comp. The Aces have a great culture. Like, I've seen that team. Obviously, even at WNBA All Star, you could just see the culture of that team. They play together because there's a team culture there where you can tell they would do anything for one another. I think if the Sky can get to that level of like cohesion and chemistry, and that's kind of like the other side of what I just talked about in terms of competition, like, you can see that go one of two ways. It could be really great or it could be detrimental potentially. Like, we've seen it with the Sparks. We've seen it happen in the Aces, where like players who are very, very, very competitive come into teams and they just don't fit. Like, and so then that's possible. You ideally the Sky will be on the other end, and they will just have like a crazy, like, just mesh. That's what I want for the Sky, is for everything to mesh. So, yeah.
We got. I didn't want to interrupt you. It was like everybody dropped that same line. And like our first, Mark Schindler dropped it by accident, and then I think Calvin Wetzel said it. He's like, "Yeah, I heard Mark say it before." And then you were like, "Well, it's there. It is there. It is there." I'm sure that when they created the team name back in 06, that they thought, "Hey, we can use this. We want people to say the sky is the limit." So they had a ready-made marketing opportunity from day one. It is good, though, that you're coming to cover the best team in the WNBA, because then you will be able to be a fly on the wall at practice and see that competition. You know,
If
and
the best team in the WNBA,
we have the best food in the WNBA. We're gonna get you out here to get the Herald's on 103rd Street, and
as long as Mark Schindler isn't talking about food, we're in this.
let's
Oh
not
my
give.
gosh, Mark! I don't want to hear anything you have to say about food. I stopped tweeting kind of like conversationally, but what he like pulled me out of retirement. He tweeted something so egregious about food, and I was like, "You gotta be kidding me with this."
We got Mark catching strays. He's
Well,
been off the show for an hour.
He seems like the Dan Orlovsky of WNBA Twitter, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, Mark is great. He just doesn't like good food for some reason.
I'm so glad that Dan came up, because I interned at ESPN in like 2022 in production, and he was one of the first people I met, Dan Orlovsky, at ESPN. And because I'd heard so much about his diet, and I was like nervous meeting him, we're having a conversation, and he goes, "Oh, well, I'm going to go to the cafeteria. I need to eat." And I was like, "Oh, right, because you eat like raw chicken." Like, that's what. I was
not heard any of this.
I seen TikToks of him eating like bland chicken, but I was so nervous. The words "raw chicken" just came out of my mouth. He looked at me like I was crazy, and I was like, "Oh no, I meant bland chicken," and that was even worse. That was even worse. He's a really nice guy, but yeah, Dan Orlovsky eats weird food.
I can't say much. My roommates got on me a while back when I was trying to drop some weight and really get back in the gym for softball, and I was putting chicken in the pressure cooker and pretty much just like putting broccoli on the plate with it, and they were looking like, "Yo, you know you can like sear that and put some other stuff on it if you want." And I'm like, I know there's garlic on this, there's red pepper on this, and they were just like, "Nah, that chicken is white, bro. Like, you got to do better."
You know, I've been to Chicago. The only thing I remember from Chicago food is Portillo's. I remember thinking that Portillo's was pretty good, but like I can't remember anything else.
Callie, we got to get you back in. There's so many hidden gems that you didn't get the chance to get to. And I know.
I mean, Portillo's is a good start. It's a good start, but yeah,
It's definitely a good start.
Right. Oh, Just Fly with a fun question here. I'm just wondering, why was Kamilla and Angel handed the same jersey number 24 on stage? You know, shout out to you for not buying into the sports, because every year they do the same thing, and it's just the year that it is on the draft, on the jersey. That's all it is. I think Danny got tripped up earlier. He was like, "Oh, number 24, that's an interesting choice." And I was like, "Oh, wait, no, it's the year. It's just the year." Callie, I want to talk to you. I know we've at this point we've gone through so many questions just about the minutiae of the draft, but we haven't talked enough about the CBA that's upcoming in conjunction with these players who have such a following coming from college, coming in, and, you know, not just Caitlin Clark, but Angel Reese, who Sham Sharania broke the news of before she was drafted. What does this infusion of talent and following marketability do for the Players Association and their leverage potentially in the new renegotiation of the CBA when that comes up?
Well, you know, I think the big ticket item is charter flights. That's what we're going to be like. That's the focus for negotiations. It was a huge issue last season with Brittany Griner, and everybody knew it was going to be a problem before the season even started. It was like, we need Brittany to be protected. We need her to not be walking through airports and being in waiting areas. And then we saw in real time what the consequences were of the WNBA's rules kind of preventing Brittany from chartering every single flight. Because initially they said, oh, we have a plan for Brittany. She'll be good. And then we saw her be accosted by like and so that's the type of thing we don't want to see. And Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, they have the same type of notoriety that Brittany Griner has. Like, they're going to be walking through the airport and people are going to be swarming. And so I think, we saw the WNBA commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, be asked about charter flights before the draft. And she mentioned that she doesn't have any interest in putting the WNBA at risk financially. And so that charter flights will have to be kind of handled at a point where the league can afford to make it happen and make all things equal and things like that. So it's definitely interesting to me because the question is going to be how much money the league is going to make from its new media rights. And we just saw college basketball record just historic numbers game after game after game. And so they should use that as leverage to bargain. And you just have to hope, because right now the WNBA is the rights are it's like undersold. And so you just hope that the WNBA won't undersell themselves again. Mm-hmm. That's the ideal outcome. And so I would be really interested to see how those negotiations unfold, because that's what this is all going to hinge on. That's going to be the biggest issue, is charter flights. And the biggest determining factor on how that will go will be the money from the media rights deal.
I couldn't agree more with that. I think the just general traveling situation, Callie knows better than either one of us too, Chris. There's some collegiate teams that travel better than professional teams do. And obviously kudos to those teams, because those athletes certainly deserve it, but the professionals do as well. And I think naturally, with the attention being garnered, the revenue that's coming from the attention being garnered, you have to get to a place where these athletes, like we talk about with each team having the requisite facilities for players to be the best version of themselves, traveling is included in all of that. And I think also being able to clean up the roster situation to where more, with the influx of talent that the teams are going to have to choose from in these upcoming drafts the next 2, 3, 4 years, having the roster capacity and just a general cap space to keep these high-end talents on rosters, and to where we're not seeing, like we saw the last 3, 4 seasons, where we're seeing high-end draft picks not make the ultimate roster that goes into a season for a team. That's an indictment to just the level of athleticism and the level of skill that these teams have. So I think in addition to everything that Callie mentioned, being able to get that part squared away with the rosters is going to be important as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've heard positive things about expansion. Obviously, we have the Bay Area team coming, which is going to be huge. That's 2025. That's next year. I can't even believe that it's 2024 right now, actually. But that's right around the corner. So that's super exciting. But I think Kathy said today she wants to get to 16 teams. I'm not sure what the year deadline that she gave was for that, but 16 teams would be good. That would be really great.
That'd be really solid. Stephen, we got that video up for the reaction from that first pick of the draft. Want to get both of y'all's thoughts on it if we can. I know, Lawrence, you got that ready?
Yeah, it's 40 seconds. We could play that and get the reaction on the backside.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is, the Cardoso pick.
I love that, man. That was the Kamilla Cardoso pick, and it reminded me of the best things I think that we've seen from the NBA and NFL drafts. Just a room full of people ready, yo, this is it. We're back now.
Well, yeah, honestly, Steven, you were telling us about the atmosphere there. It looked super full, and it was awesome. I mean, that's great to see that many people out there supporting the Sky on draft night.
Yeah, and there was a solid little capacity of people that were outside too. So I think it was at least over 150. It might have been closer to that 200 number that we talked about in the opening, Chris and Lawrence. I think they might have even potentially exceeded that. But because I think the capacity might have been met.
I was gonna
But
say, yeah.
they make special exceptions. But you didn't hear that from me. That's unofficial.
But wait, now Steven, real quick, I was putting the videos together. We also have the Reese video. Is it just me, or is the Reese reaction even bigger than the Cardoso reaction?
It is because Angel has that gravity to her. Yes.
Oh yeah, she's got the cachet. People know about her pointing to her ring finger last year and all that good stuff. All right, let's play that video then, because that was kind of fun to watch too.
Yeah, let's.
If I can get it queued up, here we go.
In the 2024 WNBA Draft.
It's so funny. Like,
yeah. People filming their TVs, you have to find.
That's such a Brave New World kind of thing. Like people filming a screen with a screen is just so off the wall. Like it's funny enough seeing people with their cameras out at concerts where I was just like,
I hate it.
I used to bring one digital camera and take like 2 photos and then tell everybody like, yo, you should have been there. And now they're just like, I've got my camera out and I'm like, you can't see what's going on through your phone screen, but just filming a screen with a screen is a very, very 24 thing. But yeah, that Angel Reese reaction was hype. Everybody was ready for that.
Yeah, and then they had the requisite "Let's Go Sky" chants going crazy after the Angel pick, which obviously was a little bit stemming from Kamilla, and then having it in succession to Angel after that. Yeah, the energy was there, and I'm not sure Wintrust outside of the 2021 playoffs has seen the type of crowds that they're going to draw for this upcoming season, and I think that there would naturally be a rivalry between the Sky and the Fever, just because of the respective draft picks that have come in this 2024 draft. So it's gonna be fun. If you haven't already, start looking at them Sky tickets. Get your ticket stamped earlier than later because it's up this season for sure.
Yeah, Kelly, one of the last things I want to ask you, since the Fever come into town on June 26th, we were talking about it here. The Game Time app and a lot of the ticket resale apps have tickets going as high as like $2,000 because they were talking about the Caitlin Clark effect. And then the Aces is the very next home game. If with your choice of teams that the Sky are going to be playing opponents, Rickea Jackson with the Sparks, who I thought might have kind of a revenge thing on her mind since she was a Sky pick in so many mocks leading up to the draft. What would you advise people to say, hey, I want to go see this game? Would you say home opener against the Sparks, game against the Fever, or game against the Aces?
Ooh, that's tough. I think, okay, let me think about this. I mean, what you said is really astute. We're going to want to see kind of like the Rickea revenge game. Like, I think that's going to be a big draw. I mean, who say, like, she probably doesn't even care. I'm sure she's happy where she's at and things like that. But I do think that'll be a really cool game to see. I don't know. I mean, I think the Aces, in my opinion, are the team you should want to see. I think Sky Aces are going to be a really interesting matchup this season, especially. So that would be maybe like my second recommendation. I just saw too that the Aces selected Kate Martin from Iowa.
Yes.
And I know so many people were pulling for that selection. Like a lot, and I saw Kate Martin herself say like, she doesn't get selected, would be devastated. So now, she's made it to the WNBA and these are the back-to-back champions. So I think that just that Iowa connection in itself too is going to be really cool. Kate Martin has not as many fans as Caitlin Clark, but like those Iowa fans do not play. So I think that that's going to be cool too.
We actually had a header in the comment section. Brody way earlier on said, "Let's go Sky," but he had the Hawkeyes on his YouTube banner right there, and he said Sky versus Fever is going to be must-see TV. Must-see TV is a very good way to put it because even on my freelancer salary, $1,000 a ticket is a little too steep You know what I'm saying? So I'm getting in there on the press credential.
Yeah,
to
get
see
me in
that
there too if you
particular
don't mind.
game. Right, right.
So
Hey,
wait,
Chris.
the Sky is playing the Aces at T-Mobile Arena, right? Like that was one of their expanded games,
I
wasn't it?
believe so. I was
No,
talking about
I
the
think
Sky game
it's
in
I think it's
Chicago.
when the Aces play Iowa, excuse me,
No, that's
Indiana.
the Fever.
It's when they play
Well, no,
Indiana.
that was
Yeah.
one of them. But I know the Aces, they have two games at
hmm
T-Mobile Arena this season.
I can't remember if the one against the Sky is at T-Mobile, but I think you're a perfect person to figure that out for us.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
I'll say to Callie, no matter where you end up, invest in an umbrella, whether it's for rain or very intense sunshine, as Steven can attest to. We are the Chicago Sky Drake team here, which we both needed when we were out west. Yeah, so I mean, you're from California. It's even if it's NorCal, that if you're outside the Bay, as soon as you get outside the Bay, you really gotta stay out of the sun. It's tough.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm from Sacramento. That's where I live right now. This is like,
Skytown.
it gets hot out here. Like we get sun on another level, we get heat on another level. It's nice right now though. These past couple days have been so nice. So, but I hear you for sure.
I'm gonna be out in a couple weeks. My cousin's getting married in Richmond, so I'm gonna be out there.
Ooh, I love the Bay. I went to San Francisco State University, and a lot of my family lives in the Bay Area, Richmond specifically. So
Nice.
that's one of my favorite places in the world.
It'll be great. Callie Lawson Freeman, I want to thank you for joining us on the show. I think we're starting to wind down our coverage because the chat is slowing down. I think they're getting tired of hearing me talk. That's the only thing I can really think of because you have been great. Every one of our guests tonight has been great. Lawrence got a shout out in the chat from Cricket. They accidentally she said, I called you Stephen by accident. Don't be mad at me.
That's fine.
He said that's fine. He said, Crickets are good. Crickets are good. French Bulls TV, our man who's been in from the start all the way from France. I don't know what time it is in France, but it is before. It is not. It's not 8:27. I will say that very much.
It is. I think it's like 7 hours away
from the start.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. 7-hour time difference.
Yeah.
I wanted to check this. My fault.
Wait. By the way, I took Callie off screen. Are we saying goodbye to her? Did we say goodbye to her?
Well, I want to get the official
hold on.
goodbye.
Yeah, here we go.
Follow Callie. There we go. Follow Callie at Callie J Law on Twitter. That's at Callie J Law. Again, fantastic work on that interview with De'Erica Hamby last year because that's a story that needs to continue being told. And congratulations on your new upcoming position. Legitimately, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get to travel for away games so we can see you out here in Chicago and treat you to some real Chicago food and not just hotel food because that's not the same. And I know you know that. But thank you again for coming on, Callie.
Yeah, appreciate you, Callie.
Thank you. This was so fun. We'll have to do it again sometime.
For sure. Much
Most
appreciated.
definitely.
French Bulls TV, he said it's only 2:30 a.m. here. Keep it up. No, we can't go that
He
long.
said only.
We're gonna come. He said it's only 2. Well, you know what? When you're in Europe, and you watch these sports,
Condition yourself.
He says he's actually in England where it's 2:30. It's 3:30 in France.
But still, I know they're so used to staying up for games, where they prime time 7:30 in like the West Coast. It's like 4 a.m. Like I never understand how folks over there watch like NFL. On the
I have a hard time staying up for the West Coast baseball games.
Dude, if you hear New York people talk about how upset they are to have
know.
to watch West Coast games, you would think it is the worst experience they've had in their lives. And this is after COVID. They're still mad about it. Steven, man, I know we're kind of getting to the end of our coverage here. Of course, we appreciate you being on the ground. Follow Steven at StayTrueS.3. Again, all season long at allchgo.com. He's going to be having your breakdowns, Sky analysis, talking about how Kamilla Cardoso, Angel Reese, and, fingers crossed for second-round picks, Brennan Maxwell, fit in on this Sky roster all season long, how they work. But, Steven, as things kind of close up, what's it looking like over at HQ?
Everybody's more than pleased with the performance of the Sky decision making realm sector of everything that they're doing. They're really, really excited. They had Teaspoon able to kind of engage with the crowd a little bit as well. And that got a lot of attention. Naturally, she was able to give them some of that energy that she's going to be giving the players on the roster as well as the general people that show up to Wintrust. Give them a little taste of what they're going to be seeing this season. So I'm looking forward to that. And I actually will have an opportunity to speak with her and Jeff Pagliocca probably within the next 10 minutes or so. So I'm going to have to jet. But I'm looking forward to seeing what their personal assessments are of the picks that they made, where the roster stands, and where they're headed into media day and training camp relatively soon.
Let's get one last treat in for our longtime Region Rev. That tweet from Dana Evans from earlier in the night. You got that one, Law?
Yeah, let's see. Here we go. Let's get this on screen.
Yeah, Dana was excited about these picks.
Mm-hmm.
You see it right there. Welcome Kamilla C. Silva and Reese 10 Angel it's up. It's up.
Mm-hmm.
It's up.
And what a treat is going to be to see Dana transition from the rookie to now she's going to be the vet to these players. You know, that's kind of like my last little parting thought right there. She's going to be in a position of leadership this season. It's going to be a big time season for her. And I'm not even talking about her play on the court. I'm just talking about, the leadership that's going to come with her being a lead guard and now being at the point in her career that she's in. So it's going to be fun to gauge that for sure.
Yeah, we talked all winter long about Dana's play with Besiktas feeding Lee Uree down low. And now she's going to have some big targets to feed down low with Elizabeth Williams and Kamilla and Angel Reese running the floor. So stay tuned. Stay tuned, Skytown. I think we got some good ones in here. Like I've said all night, I was more in favor of Rickea Jackson. I was looking forward to Alyssa Pilley. Minnesota!
Mm-hmm.
They got Alyssa Pilley. So we didn't talk about Sky versus Lynx, but that's going to be a game to watch because you're going to be able to welcome back Courtney Williams and Alana Smith and also be able to see Alyssa Pilley up close. Yeah. Yeah, but it's going to be a good season. Steven, we want to let you jet, man. But as always, check us, chgolocker.com, to get this Sky shirt, to get the white Sky shirt, to get the gray Sky shirt. And again, we got the merchandise all throughout CHGO Sports. And I want to give our time to the White Sox guys because they're about to start up. But thank you so much to everybody who checked in with us throughout the night. Cricket, we got that cricket comment up there. That's nice. That'll be a good one to go out on. So I'm brand new to watching any basketball. My husband watched college ball, both men's and women's. I'm excited. CHGO has a pod for the Sky, and now I'm officially got a team to follow. I'll throw my hands up for that too.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you coming on. This is Stay True S.3. I'm at Quandary Kitten. That's our man Law on the quick draw. And this has been the CHGO Sky Draft Show. Until next time, folks, be good, do great things, keep your head above the clouds, never give up, never surrender.
We all silly like the mayor.